OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Right, bang on 7:30 this Monday morning. You're very welcome along to OTB AM. It's Ger and Nathan with you all the way through until 10. Nathan in celebratory mode this morning. How are you, Nathan?
Morning, Ger.
How's it going?
I'm all right.
Yeah. And how was your weekend?
Good weekend, Ger. Good weekend, yeah. Busy weekend.
What'd you get up to?
Yesterday with Shamrock Rovers.
Right.
A lot of football games yesterday.
Yeah.
A lot of football matches right through the day. 12 hours of football matches. Saturday I was in recovery mode.
Oh, yeah?
Generally, as you led me astray on Friday evening. My well-worn IMRO Radio Awards plan of get down to the Lyra.
Where are they all? Where are the awards?
Well, I know where mine is. I know where mine
you get one? You got one. Congratulations, Nathan.
I don't know where the other two are. Last scene I've heard at the Lyra at 4 a.m. was our producer, Colin Buhig, and the evening show producer, Mick McCarthy, literally rowing over the two of them for our sports programme and sports story awards after the clean sweep for Off the Ball as to which of them was more responsible for this.
Well, we'll come back to this a little bit later on. So you had a good weekend.
It was a good weekend.
Well deserved. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ger. Thanks.
I had a great weekend up until this morning when I came in because yesterday I also sat watching a lot, but then stopped watching for like a family movie because it's like a thing that we do once, and then we had missed it on Saturday night because it was a party to go to. And so in the middle of it, I was getting a lot of grief because I was very busy booking flights to Ireland versus France in Paris in September. The price got very expensive very quickly, and I was like, okay, look, it's worth it. It's gonna be good. Because we'd just been to Paris, obviously, for the Champions League. Had a very good time.
Well, you were the only one.
Well, no, everybody on our trip had a really good time. There was definitely some shenanigans. We understand that, but we managed to avoid it. So anyway, I'm one of the idiots who now has flights to a match that's not going to happen.
Well, you're one who I think will definitely have flights to a match that won't happen because Ireland-France is unlikely to happen in Paris, it seems, because the Rugby World Cup starts the day after, unless they decide to put it in the Parc de France, possibly, instead of the Stade de France, but it does look as though it'll be somewhere else in France. And no harm in that, considering Stade de France has never been our favourite place in the world.
Would you nil all there, happily?
Football. Well, we would take that. Yeah, it's an absolute shambles, it seems.
We beat them 1-0 in 90 minutes?
So, obviously, the worst thing is that we've had a horror draw. Then people go, actually, one thing that's not too bad is the fact that, we get close trips. Everyone gets in early, books their flights. And then UEFA say last night, disregard all that. We made a mistake. We've been back to you sometime the next few days with the actual fixtures.
Well, of course, I didn't book them through an airline website. I booked them through lastminute.com. And so, therefore, I was like, I don't need any cancellations. This is going to go ahead.
Insurance?
The first one I booked, I got the whole way through, and they're like, "Oh, those flights are gone." And then, anyway, yeah. So I feel Stephen Kenny's pain this morning. We've had a similar experience. The draw has led to a bit of an issue. Right, it is 7:33. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish your day. Here's what's coming up. Performance ranking straight away. David Meyler is going to join us at 7:55 for specific reaction to the draw. We might talk about Liverpool as well. Andy Mitten at 8:10. Things are going well for Man United. They're not in the red this morning. Sports pages at 8:35. We'll also get an update from Cathal. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at 8:50 to talk about the rugby at the weekend. The Munster thing is getting, real at this stage. Harriet Prior is going to give us some Liverpool thoughts and Sunday papers at 9:30. But at 7:34, it's time for the Gillette Labs performance rankings.
That wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performances was just lacked that intensity.
We're going to leave the Formula One until Shane is in tomorrow because there's too much to get through. Like somebody could easily have been killed. They didn't know what the story was at the end. The reigning world champion was like, oh, I didn't win. Did I win? Very underwhelming. But we'll get to that tomorrow. It's not on the performance rankings today. Where are we starting?
We're going to start with Liverpool yet again, who must be leading the way this season in appearances in the red. Beaten. And, well, I think Jurgen Klopp himself admitted they are not in the title race, and it's hard to see how they could be when you look at their results this season. Despite beating Bournemouth 9-0 earlier in the season, they're now behind Bournemouth in the Premier League table. And it was all the same problems yesterday. It reminded me of watching Arsenal, Liverpool a lot over the past 5 or 6 seasons, but the roles were reversed in the way that Arsenal just cut Liverpool apart again and again and again. And I don't know how many zooms you can do in on Trent Alexander-Arnold in 45 minutes, but a new record was definitely sent yesterday. Every time something went wrong, there was only one man that the TV cameras were looking for, whether he was culpable or not. And for the first 2 goals, he was certainly involved in them, but it's not getting any better. And despite the change in shape, they don't look any more solid at the back. They're getting totally overrun in midfield. And some of their forward players aren't firing. Like Mo Salah just doesn't look like a player with any confidence right now. Luis Diaz picked up what looked like a bad injury, and Jurgen Klopp was really concerned after the game, left the stadium on crutches. So he's provided a bit of energy at the very least. Núñez did well yesterday, had chances, got himself a goal, looked a real threat, didn't look like a striker lacking in confidence. And obviously Firmino's the real surprise of the season in that every time he plays, he seems to be scoring, and Jota did well. But it's behind that. They just look so soft right now. And for a team like Arsenal, with all the confidence that they have, it went exactly as you would have predicted if you didn't know the recent history of the two clubs. If you just looked at this season, it very much played out along forward lines.
Is there any kind of fix that's available from a Liverpool perspective, or is it now one of those seasons where they really have to hope that they go on a crazy run in the Champions League that somehow rescues the season?
Possibly, or the goalkeeper pops up and scores a winner at some stage and you scrape through to the top 4 and you reset. He'll have to come up with some sort of a fix. He's obviously decided to go with 2 in midfield. Like, can you play with 2 in midfield and the 2 be Jordan Henderson and Thiago? Do they have the energy levels? Do they have the quick burst of speed that you need to get across and cut out a counter-attack? It doesn't feel like it. It feels like both of them, particularly Henderson, is really lacking that. And it was such a key cog of what Liverpool have done. Maybe he brings Fabinho back in again. Could you play Salah through the middle a little bit more as just a number 9 and play some off him? There's things he can do, and there's things he'll have to try and do, particularly if Trent Alexander-Arnold is injured as well. He's going to have to make quite a few alterations. But right now, it's very hard to see how they turn this around, considering next Sunday they play Manchester City at Anfield.
How bad does it get?
Think how bad it got the last time. And look, a lot of that was obviously down to injuries. This time, it feels like it's a sort of total systems failure, that the same things are happening again and again. And I do think it's down to the midfield. I do think when you look at Liverpool, the signing of Thiago changed everything about the way that they played. That suddenly they were a lot more possession-based. They weren't totally reliant on turnovers. And you could argue that maybe they played some of their best football ever under Jurgen Klopp since Thiago has come to the club. But the problem is nobody else can do what he can do when they have a 3-man midfield. Nobody else can control a game the way he can. And he's always injured. So it seems a bit of inconsistency in there. They don't have the energy. They don't have Fabinho and Henderson been able to protect the full-backs the way they once were. And they need to look at what they did over the course of the summer. Like Darren Núñez may go on to be a success. He may go on and score 15 goals this season, which will probably be a success, albeit in the shadow of what Erling Haaland is doing. But midfield was where they needed reinforcements. I still can't see Harvey Elliott being a midfielder in a Jurgen Klopp team. Like, he's brilliantly talented. You could see a place for him in the front 3, like Fabio Carvalho, the exact same thing. But they're too light. They don't have the tenacity of a Wijnaldum, Fabinho, Henderson midfield of Liverpool at their absolute best. So I'm not sure in the short term what they can do. They should have gone and invested in the summer. They should have gone and maybe they tried with Jude Bellingham at the time. The vibe seemed to be that maybe Bellingham has passed them at this stage in terms of the transfer fee that they'll look for. But Liverpool, the reason they got to the next level was they went and they signed one of the best goalkeepers in the world. They signed the best centre-half in the world. They spent an enormous amount of money on them. And they had a manager who we know can make players better.
Yeah. There's no bit here where in your, the Klopp relationship gets to a point where it's like, okay, I've done amazing things here. I'm going to go and try and find something else to do.
I think that watching the game yesterday, it felt so calamitous at times that every time Arsenal came forward, you go, like, how can they be this poor so quickly? And the club has tried something else. He has changed the system over the past week. And all right, they beat Rangers and it was a fine performance. But Arsenal were at a totally different level to Liverpool yesterday. And he was out during the week saying it's not like Borussia Dortmund, it's not like Mainz. There's a very different scenario here. Having the players leaving, we're in a far stronger position. And you have to trust that he's been able to turn it around before. After they had that disastrous season a couple of years ago, they went incredibly close last season. And I don't think anyone in their right mind will be calling for Jurgen Klopp.
No, it's the opposite though. He might just get fed up with it. Yeah. The one thing it did feel a little bit this year, like the Liverpool, like beating Liverpool, you can't say that Arsenal are. After the game that Arsenal lost against Manchester United, in fairness to you, you said they showed loads. Stick with them. This isn't the same Arsenal anymore. And I think that you were probably on balance right. But I still think beating Liverpool in the manner in which they did isn't the amazing thing that it would have been this time last year, or when Liverpool were at their peak. Liverpool are like one of those prize fighters who are a little bit shot and look great on your record, but actually when you look at it, not really that big a deal anymore, because loads of teams are actually going to beat Liverpool this season, or will score 3 times against them and maybe end up drawing 3-3. So
now they've only lost 2 games all season in the Premier League, but they're not winning games, and they've only won 2. And even if you think
10 points from 8 games,
even if you think of the 2 games they won, obviously Bournemouth is a 9-0 spectacular performance, but Bournemouth obviously capitulate completely in that. And the other one is the Newcastle game, where they score literally the last kick of the game with Fabio Carvalho, and Newcastle could just have easily have gone and won that game. And for Arsenal, I think it's important because they've had so many tough days against Liverpool. Again, Arsenal were a team that Liverpool would have looked at and thought, their weaknesses are exactly what we will expose, and they did it again and again and again through Salah and Mane. Whereas Arsenal, yes, they would have looked at Liverpool and thought, like down the wing, like Martinelli from the first second. And that has to be a criticism of Klopp, that everyone watches Arsenal this season and knows how good Martinelli is.
Yeah, do something about it.
How do you let him get in behind inside the first minute of the game?
Yeah, all right. Good win for Arsenal yesterday. I'm looking forward for another week of ignoring them, says Bamba Sonicus. No, we're gonna talk a lot about Arsenal now, it turns out. Michael says Klopp has lost his magic. They'll most definitely lose to City this weekend, leaving them in the bottom half of the table mid-October. This team is now not good enough anymore, says Mixters. And then the rest of them are coming in at the moment about the Ireland thing. Sorry, morning lads. I think we'll do all right in the Euros. How does Nathan feel about Liverpool's relegation fight? Can they survive? They should just be able. Enough. Too big to go down. Too big to fail. All right, let's move on, because the other thing that happened over the weekend was the inconsistencies in VAR. I don't know, are they inconsistent or not, or is this just like, it seems like the handballs in particular are inconsistent yesterday.
Well, there's a couple of different things going on with VAR. I should try my Dermot Gallagher Irish accent right now, where I have a different voice when I'm talking to the Irish people as opposed to speaking to the Sky Sports audience. I actually saw Dermot Gallagher walking into Hampden Park the night of the Ireland-Glasgow game, walking into the Ireland section, goes to all the games.
Yeah.
What a man. So the Gabriel one, has to be a handball. It's a clear penalty. The second you see the replay, in
and
real time.
What happens if that is, and what happens if Liverpool go?
Well, there's a few decisions, because the Thiago foul on Gabriel Jesus, if the referee doesn't give that in real time, I don't think there's any way VAR overturn it and give the penalty. They obviously felt that it wasn't a clear and obvious error, that there was enough contact on Gabriel Jesus for it to be a penalty. But Gabriel, every time you see that, it's a penalty kick. His arm is up. Is it in a natural position? Maybe when you're jumping, it's a little bit. He's very close to the player when the ball smashes off his arm. But you're going to see 20 of those given this season. It's an important time in the game, and it's just so frustrating with VAR, because you have no idea what they're going to give. I was commentating on Crystal Palace Leeds yesterday. There's Decore, the Palace midfielder, gets booked early on. He goes in with a really rash challenge. He has to be sent off. It's a clear second yellow card, almost like a Jason Mullaney. The referee goes, has a look, sees as it is. No, you're fine. VAR have to intervene here and say, there's a bit of a lunge here. You have to send him off, and they don't in that case. So, no, Palace go on and come back and they win the game. The other one is the Marcus Rashford incident, which I don't think would have been too controversial, only for what happened with Mikel Antonio. So this is, both of them were in a similar spot. They're cutting in from the left-hand side. The ball bobbles up and it hits them on the arm. Antonio's quite clear. He almost goes in like this and he's cradling the ball. And bizarrely, they decided that wasn't a handball. And he went through and he scored to make it 3-1 to West Ham. Marcus Rashford, he puts United 3-1 up, he thought. The replays look a little bit inconclusive. It might hit the side of his chest. There's another angle where it does look as though it brushes off his arm. That one's straightforward. It doesn't even really need VAR once they have a quick look at it, because the rule is very simple. If the goal scorer, if the ball hits his arm at all, accidental or intentional, the goal is ruled out.
I couldn't see any footage. So you say there is footage from one side where Rashford, it's clear there's a handball. I actually couldn't see it, but
So if there's debate about whether he handles it, well, that's for VAR. But if we assume
that he
does
handle it,
or that it
comes
an
off his hands.
automatic,
Yeah, no, fair enough.
cancellation of the goal. But how it doesn't happen with Mikel Antonio?
Yeah, well, it's clear as day.
They don't have to think about these things.
Yeah, all right.
So
we should stop thinking about it. VAR hasn't really been the breakthrough, the moment of human progress that we thought it would be. What about Cristiano Ronaldo's finish? Casemiro's pass for Cristiano Ronaldo's finish. That's pretty good.
Ronaldo, listen, there's parts of his game you can tell every so often he goes, press, I must press. But when he was on the ball, like some of his little step overs at times, there's still a few little bits there from Cristiano Ronaldo you can get behind.
Right, Ireland's Euros draw is in the amber. It says here, nightmare, but great games. That's from Column. This should really be in the red, except unless you're Roddy or Dunphy, you're putting it in the green. Great draw, they're saying. Great draw.
Just shows the sort of pessimists we are. It shows...
I was all thinking I'm going to have a good...
Nightmare, but great games.
In Paris.
Is that what we are? Is that where we are now? As a footballing backwater. We're just happy that Kylian Mbappe is going to grace our shores. It doesn't matter if we win or lose. As long as Kylian Mbappe comes and sells out the Aviva. Oh, Virgil van Dijk, thank you for coming to Lansdowne Road and selling all those season tickets. It is a nightmare draw. I can understand the angle of, well, actually, there's not going to be any huge expectation around these games. For Ireland, it's going to come down to beating Gibraltar twice and then beating Greece twice and hoping you can nick something off those 4 games.
Are we going to beat Greece twice?
Beat each other. Listen, I'd imagine in Athens this morning they're saying,
beat Ireland twice.
4th seeds, and we've got Ireland as 3rd seeds. Great opportunity for us here. It's a very, very difficult draw. And the disappointment is that you're looking at it straight away going, we're going to be reliant on a playoff. Playoff isn't 100% guaranteed to the way it was last time round. And in fact, the way the draw has gone, where a lot of the better teams are all on the same side, could give others an opportunity as lower seeds to qualify, which would potentially have a knock-on effect for Ireland. I still think it's likely that Ireland will end up in a playoff, but Ireland have played well against the better teams.
That's the one. That's the one.
France and the Netherlands.
Yeah.
If it is France next March in the first game, players will have just come through a World Cup straight back into the Premier League, played an awful lot of football.
Could they just flip it so that we're away in Paris and in that?
We
first
don't know
game?
if Ireland is the issue. So the reason UEFA have come out and said there's a problem in one group, and trying to find details yesterday evening, seemed to be talk that there was in one of the other groups that there was a problem, but because of the TV deal and them having to ensure that the better teams don't all play in the same night, that may have a knock-on effect. Now, it seems mad that they would change several of the groups just for one group. But yeah, hold your horses in terms of booking flights. And maybe they do a swap for Ireland and France, but the fact that it's the night before. There's a lot of people who are going to be going over to France for this match and not returning home for several weeks, I suspect. Considering Ireland are going to be playing the rugby straight away.
Several weeks. That would be a good trip.
You do the full tour. You do the full...
Yeah.
Straight down to Bordeaux.
Yeah, it's very nice.
On to Nantes. And then
Bordeaux,
back up
very,
to
very,
Paris.
very, very expensive, Bordeaux.
Very expensive.
Yeah.
Very expensive. So...
Nantes,
yeah, listen,
surprisingly nice city.
I haven't been to Nantes.
That's
but
very
Bordeaux,
good.
Bordeaux was very, very nice when we were there for the Belgium game. Result, not so good. If you were sitting down yesterday morning and going, the usual, good draw, bad draw, like this was the bad draw.
Yeah.
This was the bad draw.
I do think it's important that we play well against the good teams. We shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, it is. And you could end up in, and listen, both of these sides, have, as we know, the ability to implode at a certain stage. And I think that's the hope that if you were to pick up a point against France early on, and then the Dutch were to go and beat them. But the key thing is that you have to win your 4 games against Greece and Gibraltar to have any chance of finishing in the top 2. And remember, Nations League comes back to bite us in the ass again. Nothing that happens after that. If Ireland don't finish in the top 2, if they finish 3rd or if they finish 5th, makes no difference to whether Ireland get a playoff.
Sure. It'll make a lot of difference towards the psychological well-being of the nation's state and the mood music and rankings in the future as well. The Dutch are beatable. I fancy us to do them at home, says Chris Cahill. Hi, Ger, incredibly excited for our Euro 2024 group as I feel after the improvements in Ireland's play and another season of football for our young guns, we will cause some upsets. Coy big, says James McCullough. And Patrick McHugh says horrific Euro qualifying draw. Is this going to be how Kenny is judged? Ye at OTB have been saying this all year. I'm a Kenny man. but he's up against it now. He is up against it.
No, absolutely. And I think we can all make a case for Ireland getting better and, as we say, performing against the better sides. But if you're just to look at it on paper and the talent that is in that Dutch squad and that is in that French squad, I think whatever team was the third seed in that group
was going to struggle.
Was going to struggle. But there is a way. Again, we know the way Irish football works. There's a way of winning, a way of losing, and Stephen Kenny needs to find the balance.
Okay, Connacht.
Yes.
New 4G pitch, free from the wind and the rain and the weather.
Well, I wouldn't quite go that far. But
they're back.
They're back. First win of the season. They'd had a really tough start to the season, really tough fixture list as well at the start of the season. Beat Munster at the Sports Ground on Friday night, 20 points to 11. By all accounts, that was probably as close as it could have been, because Connacht were by far and away the better side. Somehow found themselves behind at half-time, 8-5, when they should have been well clear. Missed several chances to get into an early lead. Gave Munster an opportunity, but just about grounded out at the end. Finlay Bealham was man of the match. Mac Hansen got himself a try as well. Huge performances from them. Bealham probably enough in that, albeit a year away, to make sure he's in that Ireland squad as Ty Furlong's backup for the World Cup. Mac Hansen is obviously going to be right in contention for a starting place. Jack Carty had a funny old day in that he was brilliant in open play, but missed 3 kicks, 2 conversions and a penalty. Conversion right in front of the posts, hit the post. 3 from 3, and unfortunately, as a kicker, that's the thing you're going to home in on. And Fitzgerald came on then and took the last couple and kicked them to give Connacht at least a bit of breathing space. So you do wonder if it would actually be in Jack Carty's best interest long term if somebody else took the kicks, because probably in open play he is right in the mix to be in that World Cup squad. But yeah, as you say, Connacht, a very difficult start, and factor not in the Champions Cup this year. We know the Champions Cup qualification for next year is very difficult, as it will quickly become for Munster. I saw somebody analysing today, you probably need maybe 10 wins to get Champions Cup qualification this season.
It's a lot of wins. They got to start getting some of them.
Like, both these sides got to start getting some of them. Connacht play Leinster at the weekend, and then it's Leinster-Munster the following weekend. But as you say, there's a big crowd in Galway. They've got their new pitch. Maybe they can turn it into a bit of a fortress. You win almost all your home games, you're going to start getting close to that 10. But Quinny's going to be with us in a while.
Yeah.
Munster's probably, again, almost the bigger story.
Yeah, other great performances from Ulster and from Leinster in a topsy-turvy seesaw game where Sexton was right in the middle of everything, including the flare-up at the end. He has started the season as somebody who is enjoying every second of it. We'll talk about that, as I said, with Quinny a little bit later on. And then finally, the last one, Shamrock Rovers.
Yes, I was in Tala last night. Speaking of Connacht, it was very sports ground-like conditions. The ball came back to Alan Manus, the Rovers keeper, in the first half, and he fired it forward, and the ball almost came right back to him. It was like a hurricane out there. And then the rain started with about half an hour to go. You could barely see what was going on out in the pitch. So Rovers have obviously been stumbling in recent weeks. They've been struggling to manage the workload of both Europe and the league. They went into last night's game 2 points clear of Derry with a game in hand. And Derry are going to Tala on the penultimate night of the season. And suddenly they find themselves 1-0 down. They get back to 1-1, 2-1 down just before half-time. And real tough Shelbourne side, like very physical. It was a right niggly, scrappy game. Shells had played with the wind in the first half. So then you're thinking, well, now Rovers have the wind. It was that strong. It was like it had a huge... Shells couldn't get out of their own half in the second half. Like, if you fired it forward, it was coming straight back at you. But it meant that they were just sticking as many men back behind the ball as they possibly could. Rovers grab an equaliser, and you think they're definitely going to go on and win. And if they hadn't won this game, they had 3 chances in pretty much injury time that flashed across the goal. Aaron Green had 2 of them where you thought he has to score. It was going to be one of those agonising nights. And then Rory Gaffney, who I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as Footballer of the Year in Ireland, scores this really good volley with the last kick of the game. Corner kick comes to him. One of these, you see people just smash at it, flash it over the top of the crossbar, side foots it. Keeper looks to be going the wrong way. Maybe he can get a stronger hand, pams it onto the post, into the back of the net. Last moment, 5 points clear, 4 games remaining, and gives them that bit of a cushion against Derry.
All right. So that is all we have in the... Oh, no, hang on a second. There's one more. There's an extra one. Look, there's a second one there. Oh, there you go. Look. Congratulations. Oh, look.
Wow, beautiful. That was taken, I'd say, pre-11 p.m.
Your voice is a bit raspy. You were on the cigars.
That was a bad idea. It's a good idea at the time. It's a bad idea the next morning. Thanks to whoever gave me that cigar. There's always people organised at these awards who are like, I just brought cigars for everybody who was going to win.
Oh, it's a good idea.
Very generous.
Yeah.
In fairness to myself and yourself, Ger, we showed our age. I think we were two of the more sensible people on the night.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me, what did you win it for?
Just all-round brilliance, Ger, I would say.
Oh,
but, hey, boom.
And would you describe yourself as a humble winner?
Of course,
Yeah.
always. It's all about the team.
Oh yeah, did you mention the team once?
It's all about the team.
Did you?
It's all about the team.
Who's on your team, Nathan? Team Nathan.
Everybody's on my team. I won it. What did I win it for? I won it for the interview I did with Stephen Kenny last year,
right?
Where he came in and he spoke about his heart attack. So that was the main part of it. But it wasn't just me, Ger. We should point out it was a clean sweep for off the ball.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. Other people won as well.
I think
didn't
it was
they?
our first ever clean sweep. Was it for off the ball at the?
I'm not
Euros?
sure. I think there might have been one in the past, but I don't remember.
Sports Programme of the Year and Sports Story of the Year as well for our coverage of the Euro 2020 final.
Yeah. Very good.
No room for anybody else, Ger.
So OTB is in the green, not just you. Good of you to point that out there eventually.
Put that there.
Yeah.
Stop trying to back me into a corner.
The
here.
arm was twisted. All right. I
can't believe it.
Right. That is this week's Gillette Labs performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
We are live every morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Up next, we're going to be joined on the line by the former Republic of Ireland midfielder David Meyler. First, Joe was joined by Kieran Cunningham and Sarah Donovan on the Sunday pay-per-view, and obviously they reacted immediately to Ireland's Euro 2024 draw. Have a look.
I'm excited by the draw. Like, I know it's very hard, but I just think, a lot of fans will go, wow, we're playing France, we're playing Netherlands. And even though it would be very hard to finish the top two, I think that would have been the case anyway. But I always thought the likeliest route is because of the convoluted system with the Nations League, more than likely you will have a playoff unless, there's a few unlikely results down the road. But, I think there will be an excitement out of France coming here, Netherlands coming here. There are also the advantage for fans as well. You can get direct flight to Paris, presuming the game is in Paris. You can direct flights to Amsterdam. You can get direct flights to Greece. That is very attractive when, the last few years when you've been going to Armenia or Kazakhstan has been very complicated, and it's been, in football terms, it's obviously hugely challenging. But it was 7 years ago yesterday, St. Ireland beat Germany, and it was Shane Long's goal. Yeah. And sometimes something, Netherlands didn't qualify for the last World Cup. There are teams that you can just get them on a certain day. Like, it's unlikely you're going to finish top two. I agree Greece would be tricky, but I think I can see positives in it. Like, I just think I know there's there's people who are very vocal about Kenny and the project, and there's excitement around it. But I think to grab the attention of a wider public, you haven't had a big glamour team playing Ireland since Germany, probably, in Ireland. I don't think you have. Have you? No, you haven't.
Portugal, glamour-ish.
Yeah, Portugal to an extent. Was that behind closed doors, that one? Or were fans back then? I'm trying to remember.
Do you not remember the girl running on getting the jersey?
Oh, yeah.
Who could forget that magical moment in Irish football?
Yeah.
It was a full house. It was an amazing atmosphere.
Right, it is 8 o'clock this morning. You're very welcome to OTB AM. If you've just joined us, if you haven't, you've already missed our performance rankings. Right, David Meyler is with us. David, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, gentlemen.
Opinion is divided about, you want to play the best teams, also you want to qualify. What was your instinct when you saw the draw first?
That's extremely tough. Obviously, you got the French and the Dutch, who are two powerhouses in European football, and then of course Greece. Greece are a good team, and then of course Gibraltar, who we always seem to play. Either Gibraltar or Georgia, we always have one of them. But the first thought was that's an extremely tough group. Greece are a very good team. So it's going to be tough, but look, you've got to go into it with optimism. There's been a lot of progression, I believe, in the team. Okay, results haven't been as good as people will have wanted. There has been progression. There's a lot of young boys. And this is an incredible test for Stephen and the players.
When we talk to players over the next few weeks, they're going to say, we relish the opportunity. These are the games you want to play, and it doesn't matter who you play, it's always going to be tough. If you were still part of the squad and you were sitting at home watching that draw yesterday, what would you have been thinking?
what an incredible opportunity to go to France to play against France, to go to the Netherlands to play against them. Yeah.
Are you not going, oh, jeez, I really want to play in the Euros, and now it's going to be far tougher?
Yeah, of course. That ultimately is the goal, to play, to represent your country in a major tournament. That's the goal. But like, if you look at history, we've only qualified for 6 competitions. It's quite easy to rattle them off. But even like, as you go back to the qualifier for the Euros in 2016, we took 4 points off the world champions. It was only 7 years ago the other day that we beat Germany when Shane scored. Like, there are moments we can produce performances. We've done it, albeit yes, it's going to be extremely tough. But I would look at it like, why not go in with optimism? The pressure in those kind of 4 games against the French and the Netherlands, like, we're expected to lose all 4 games. So you've nothing to lose. Like, you go out and you perform, you do really well, then who knows? Like you look at it. I remember everyone was in crisis when we played Scotland away, when we lost 1-0, and then all of a sudden we go and we get a result against Germany, and it kind of flips everything on its whole head. So why not? Okay, it's going to be tough, but
they did finish third in that group. You did finish third in that group, despite beating Germany, which is part of the problem here, that
you got to finish the top 2 too.
You got to finish inside the top 2. In a way, you mentioned Greece a couple of times there, and looking yesterday, I was a bit shocked to see George Baldock of Sheffield United been a key part of this Greek squad. It turns out him on one side, Kostas Tsimikas on the other side. They've obviously got a good bit of quality. Like, that's the bit they have to win those 2 games against Greece, because the problem would be that, yes, it's all well and good getting a big result against France or the Netherlands. You're not going to win your 4 games against them. That counts for very little if you don't win the 4 games against Gibraltar and Greece.
Yeah. Well, you're looking at it thinking, right, we should beat Gibraltar home and away. Fine. It's us against Greece, isn't it, really? That's the big one. That, can we go and beat them? A nation, yes, I've seen them, obviously, with them doing really well in their Nations League group. That's kind of the game where we're going to be judged on. Is the Greece game, home and away? Can we get results against them? Can we get 4 points? Can we beat them at home and get a draw away? And then you've got kind of free shots at the other nations. I think that would be, like, regardless, I know how the playoff situation works with the teams, obviously qualifying and all that, but French and the Netherlands are ahead of us. It's then we have to, secure third to kind of say, well, we are making progression, but we're playing against 2 powerhouse, nations.
Just to go take the Kenny era, right? It's the games against the better teams than us that we've played some of our best stuff. Even the 2 Scotland games, take them in the round. Scotland are the team who won the group. We got way more off them than Ukraine did. Okay, so the Ukraine B team, we actually struggled with more than anybody else. Armenia, right? So, is that not something that gives you a little bit of hope as well? That the team is actually set up to play against very good teams, that it has an expectation that it won't have 60% possession, that it can survive off 30-35% possession. We did well against Portugal in the 2 games. You would say the performances against Portugal were the best in that campaign. Like, that's the one standout part of that has been consistent. We've been consistently good against the good teams and pretty bad against the bad teams.
Yeah, that's been one of our problems. When we've dominated teams and we've had a lot of possession, we've struggled to break them down. And there's no doubt that, even now, since the last international campaign, Stephen will have sat down, he'll have, rewatched games, gone back over training, sat down with his coaches, gone through everything. They'll be looking for solutions and answers to why, if we are dominating, why aren't we creating enough chances? So there's no doubt that they'll be working extremely hard on, resolving that issue. But like you said there has been some very, very good performances. Like, even that one when you bring up Portugal, when we played them away, when John Egan scored, it was 2 incredible headers from Ronaldo that inevitably changed the game, which we were hard done by to get beaten by a very, very good Portugal team. They have some extremely talented players, but it took one of the best players of all time to produce 2 moments to beat us. So there's a lot to draw on going into those games, and I do believe we have to go in somewhat optimistic. You can't just live your life going around saying like, oh well, the results haven't been great against the lesser nations. We're playing France and the Netherlands and Greece are a good team, that this is going to be awful. We're going to finish 4th, get rid of the manager, all the players are useless. That's the way a lot of people are. I just like to look at it like we get a free shot at 2 of those big nations, and then Greece, I believe we can beat them. And I think the foundation has been put in place over the last 18 months where we are moving in the right direction. There's a lot of young players. Even if the smallest thing, if you think about it, when we go into March to play these games, like the French are off the back of the World Cup. You don't know, right, in terms of will their squad be the same? Will players move on?
New manager.
New manager, you don't know.
The Dutch are going to have a new manager more than likely. Van Gaal will go at the end of this. Like I think he's said that a couple of times.
And everyone's talking about the fitness of players for the World Cup, but actually what will the fitness be of the players who come back from the World Cup who are straight into Premier League, Serie A, La Liga a week later again? So, yeah, maybe. I think you raise an interesting point, David, about the debate around Stephen Kenny. Maybe that's the big thing to take out of yesterday's draw. It just means every game again is going to be a referendum, and it shows how the Nations League was such a missed opportunity for Ireland, because I think both literally and metaphorically it's put them in this position that if they had a higher seeding, they obviously wouldn't have ended up in this scenario if they'd beaten Armenia, if they'd won their group, as Stephen Kenny had said. But also the doubts that still remain for a lot of people around Stephen Kenny. Every single match, even that first game against France, like he's going into that knowing, and they probably have to play a friendly in that window as well now, the way the fixtures work. Like he's going into that knowing you can't get a beating. And I don't think they will get a beating, but suddenly if you were to lose, like 3-0 against France may not actually be the worst result in the world. They could be outstanding. But because of everything that's gone before, it just means the pressure is ramped up again and again and again. And they can't afford to be having any poor windows at all. So it does feel as though it's just going to prolong the debate for even longer. Because I would have been quite, I think Ireland should be qualifying for the Euros and the manager should have to qualify for the Euros. But now you're looking at this going, well, yeah, but he's probably going to have to qualify during the playoffs. So are we waiting all the way till the playoffs?
Well, yeah, I mean, if like, I don't know. They didn't the last time. You know, they made the change before the playoffs.
It was obviously a different scenario because of
it was,
COVID.
yeah, and the contracts had all been signed. So I don't know, David. Was there a question in there, Nathan? This is the quality you get from sports broadcast of the year here.
Listen. When you're sports broadcaster of the year, you stop asking questions. You start giving your own opinion. That's the gig, isn't it?
Yeah,
Meyler.
Yeah. No, but it's you're right. Like Stephen has come under a lot of criticism. You know, obviously he did extremely well with Dundalk. He's come in with glowing CV, and he did well with the 21s and everything. There's always been an agenda with a few. There's always been people who have just been anti-Stephen Kenny, and then there's been people who have been firm believers. And it's been tough for him. You know, you look back at the early days with COVID and his players, they were struggling with that. And there's been a lot of different things. I think we're all kind of looking at this qualifying campaign. Like that was the big talk finishing up in the Nations League a few weeks ago, that it was all about the Euro 24 qualifying campaign. And now the draw is out. That's the one thing that everyone said, we'll wait and see what the draw is. Now we've seen the draw and you look at the nations that we have in it, you're kind of going, oh, wow. So do opinions slightly change? Because it's not going to be easy to qualify from that. To finish, as Ger said, their top two in that would be one of the greatest achievements of any Irish manager. And that's
getting yourself a new contract, you're finishing at the top two in that group.
Yeah, and that's the challenge that is in front of him, and I think he will believe that they can get results. Like the Dutch are, you can pick holes in the Dutch because if you watch many of their games, they're a bit odd, they're a bit strange. They have top quality players, but they just don't seem to gel or bond as a group. So there could be weaknesses there that you could exploit. Obviously, Greece are going to be a similar type nation to us. Can we be, hard to break down, good in possession, create chances, take our chances, and then you kind of get free shots at France. So I do believe that a miracle could happen.
Yeah, we and the team and the players have to believe that as well. Look, we're nearly out of time in this. Before we go, Jurgen Klopp says Liverpool are out of the title race. I think that's fair enough. Very soon, if they continue in this vein of form, they're actually going to be out of the race for the top four as well.
No, not having that. They're out of the title race 100%. They won't win. They won't get near winning the league title, but they're definitely not out of the top four. I know there's a big gap, but I just even as a Liverpool supporter and whatever, I just cannot see this continuing. I cannot see it being drawn out all season. Something has to click with those players. Jurgen has obviously tried to slightly adjust with Thiago and Henderson sitting as the sixes. I I'm watching the game yesterday and I'm just looking at the intensity of the players. Certainly when they're attacking Liverpool, you look at the goal, albeit I think Trent mishits the pass, Luis Diaz chase it down. That's been Liverpool, that kind of boom, bosh, bang, that heavy metal stuff where it's 100 mile an hour. Like at the moment, they've got that little bit of Manchester City where they're always passing now. And Arsenal yesterday in transition, certainly, were just getting numbers behind the ball. And Liverpool struggled to break them down. Like Liverpool's goals came from quick passing, quick moving, going at them 100 mile an hour. Like that's one thing that Liverpool are missing. Obviously, bro, Trent struggling for confidence, everything. You know, his positioning for the first goal. You know, that's the killer ball that if any number 10 is coming at someone, you try and slip it in between a centre half and a fullback for a winger running in. Like, you've got to narrow up. You've got to force the ball wide. Second goal, like Henderson does well to slow, you know, Martinelli down. Obviously, it's 3-on-3 to get bodies back. And then Trent, I don't know what he's doing, just comes steaming across. Then, you know, Martinelli chops back. I think it's Shimikas is all in the middle on his own. He's left isolated. Ball pulls across. It's a tap in for Saka. Like it's just little moments that are going against Liverpool, but I firmly believe they're far too good to not finish in the top four. That's my take on it.
Is Thiago a problem for Liverpool? I know it sounds ridiculous to say it considering how talented he is and how brilliant a passer of the ball he is, but you're talking about them a bit like Manchester City. Like that's not the way they've ever been built. They try and get it forward quicker, whereas he's so like he would fit perfectly into that Manchester City midfield where he holds on to possession quite a bit more. That where the Liverpool attackers are always ready to go, he quite often takes the more sensible ball instead of taking the riskier pass.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from, but then even yesterday, after the first 5 minutes, right, Arsenal just came out like a train, and they got ahead. But then Liverpool dominated, and there was a big question mark, obviously, from anyone who'd be looking at the game yesterday. Obviously, with Liverpool's two midfield, Jota I know would join back in, but they were kind of up against, you know, Partey, Odegaard, and Xhaka. There was that kind of 3v2 dynamic. That's the incredible thing about Liverpool's front fours. They work so hard that they do get back into good positions and do help out. Like, I couldn't say that Thiago's one of the problems, because certainly if you look at that period from, you know, minute 5 to probably minute 45, you know, Henderson and Thiago had a lot of the ball. They had a lot of joy. They were getting on it. They were dictating play. Like Liverpool were the better team for that significant period, albeit they weren't creating a lot of wholesale chances. So I wouldn't say that, but it's just other moments that, like, if you look at it, like, look at Salah yesterday. Like, we're talking about someone who scored bundles of goals the last few years, who's been pivotal to everything that Liverpool have done. And I didn't see him yesterday in the game. There's a couple of times he drifts inside, gets the ball, and he sets it back into midfield. And it's like, that's not the Salah we know and we love. That's getting on it, driving. You look at some of the goals he got against Manchester City, United, you know, Everton, where he's getting on the ball in those pockets of space, driving at the back line and getting shots off. Like, two of his attempts yesterday were just lame.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, like, I need more from you. Oh.
Maybe him having a month off around the World Cup is going to help him recharge and be, you know, properly on it for the second half of the season when they need it, if they are going to make that top four. Oh, we're out of time, David. Great to have you with us again. Thanks a million. Cheers.
Cheers, gents. Cheers, gents.
It's all right, good stuff from David Meyler there. If you want to get in touch, 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Right, we're going to talk with Andy Mitten on Manchester United next. First, this is Kieran Cunningham talking about a terrible year for boxing when speaking with Joe yesterday.
OTB
It's been a terrible year.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the ball daily.
A home for your...
The sanctions that were brought against him, and, you know, and the relationships within boxing that were highlighted before and subsequently. When you look at the embrace of Saudi Arabia and far less criticism of boxing doing it than golf is getting, that boxing seems to be given, you know, allowed to get away with this. The Olympic situation, which unless there's something extraordinary happens, boxing is gone from the Olympics after Paris 2024. And what really struck me about the Olympic situation is the lack of reaction. You know, because like Kelly Harrington's autobiography is coming out on October 27th. And she collaborated with Roddy Doyle on that. And Roddy is a Booker Prize winner. And the only person he's ever done a book like this, like a ghosted book with before, is Roy Keane. So it shows the kind of national figure Kelly Harrington is. And that's because she's an Olympic champion. But boxing is going for the Olympics, and there's hardly been any reaction. Like, across the media, I've seen very, very little conversation, and it shows how shallow the interest in boxing is, and how marginalised in a way it's becoming. And a story like this just increases it, because people who don't know is there was supposed to be a big fight last night in London between Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. It was being sold to a large extent on the rivalry between their fathers in the 90s, which were, they're fights that were
Iconic.
Iconic, yes, probably a decent word for it, yeah. But Conor Benn, Reith Al-Samari of the Daily Mail, is a very good journalist. He's been very good in the Kinnan story as well. He was a proper journalist. He revealed, I think it was on Wednesday, that Conor Benn had failed a drugs test for, if I can remember offhand, I think it's called Clomiphene, which is a fertility drug used by women, but it also increases testosterone levels, so it can be used as a PED. And I'm waiting on the B sample, the version of the B sample, but it looks like that the authorities knew about this for a number of days before this story was revealed. And there was only a statement from the British Boxing Board of Control 2 hours after Reith Al-Samari published the story, and they called for the fight to be pulled. And it raises one huge question. Then the promoters, which is Eddie Hearn and the Wasserman Group, they tried to go ahead. They wanted the fight to still go ahead. Yeah. And Eubank was saying... And if you look at doping is more dangerous in boxing than virtually all other sports. If you're running against a sprinter who dopes, you're not putting your life on the line. But if somebody is doped, they could have serious power. And there are instances of fighters who've gone in against doped fighters and have got a serious beating. And, fighters have lost their lives or had life-changing injuries because of what's happened in the ring.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Off the Ball Daily. A home for your favourite podcasts from Off the Ball. The performance rankings, a slight tangent, the crappy quiz, and you had to be there.
5 goals in 20 minutes. It's just... You can't do that. It's the Premier League. You can't do that.
Subscribe to the Off the Ball Daily podcast feed right now.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
It's 18 minutes past 8 here on OTB AM this morning. I'm delighted to say Andy Mitten is with us. Andy, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm tired. I did... was it 2 games last night, and I only got back from Cyprus on Friday. Don't realise how far Cyprus is. It's almost a 5-hour flight away. But a lot of football coming up. Manchester United have now got 5 home games in 18 days. So busy times.
This is the meat of it now. And busy times, but bouncing into it off the back of an important win after everything that had happened in the previous couple of weeks.
I think it was an important win. I think Manchester United played well. Still lots of room for improvement, but coming from behind away to an informed team with a very tight defence was hugely encouraging for Manchester United, who'd lost the game at Goodison last season. There were cameos from Cristiano Ronaldo, who came on after 27 minutes, replacing Anthony Martial. Casemiro added to just 82 minutes of Premier League football. That's all he's had so far. So for him to start and to get stronger as the game went on after giving the ball away, leading to Everton's opener, was also encouraging for Manchester United fans. Anthony in the first half, Luke Shaw, David De Gea towards the end. It was a really good night. And unusual for Manchester United to be playing at 7 p.m. on a Sunday night, but it was a good night for Manchester United.
Having watched Casemiro last night then, Andy, and over the last couple of games, what is he bringing to that Manchester United midfield that Scott McTominay can't bring?
When he signed, I spoke to someone very senior at Barcelona, and he said to me, without putting his name to it, that he does the invisible things. Players love playing with him. He closes down the space. Defenders love playing behind him. Clearly, he's experienced. Surprisingly good in the air. He won all 8 balls in the air in Cyprus. Not that it'll be judged most strongly against Cypriot teams, What did he do at Goodison? Well, he missed a sitter with a header just before half-time, but he won the ball back in midfield, read a situation very well, and released it straight away forward to Cristiano Ronaldo, who ran onto it and scored. So I found with Casemiro, when you speak to people who play football or manage football, and I did quite a lot of that the last few days, they're absolutely glowing about him. Fans less so because he's not so obvious, but I think United fans saw the way he set that ball up last night, saw that he was part of a win, part of a team who came back. Look, he's one of the best midfielders in the world in his position. He's got the medals and trophies to prove that. But he has to get used to the Premier League. And when he lost that ball after 5 minutes, I thought it's a little bit faster in England than it is in Spain. But I don't have any doubts that he will do that.
It did take Ten Hag a little while to get him in the team. We were having this conversation a little bit earlier on, and he played a full game in an hour in the international window, and it felt like the first game back after that was the time to get him back in the team, or to start this kind of process of getting him the Premier League minutes. But it's not that Ten Hag was reluctant, because he obviously picked him last night, but what was behind the slow introduction of Casemiro to the squad, to the starting lineup?
2 words: Scott and McTominay. He was playing well. He deserved to keep his place in the team, picking up a few too many bookings, including last night at Goodison, where he was on the pitch for a couple of minutes and he got his 5th booking of the season, which means he'll miss the next league game at home to Newcastle on Sunday, which is almost certain to mean that Casemiro starts again. I think he would have started anyway, because I thought he was one of Manchester United's best players, but McTominay's had a good start to this season. When he didn't perform as well against Manchester City, not that any players did, I think that was an indicator to Erik ten Hag, okay, I'm bringing my biggest guns in now. We can't afford to be losing any more matches like that, even though Manchester City are a level above Manchester United at the moment. And you don't pay all that money for a midfielder from Real Madrid, one who was man of the match in the Super League as recently as August, and then not play him. Granted, he's a totally different type of player to Frenkie de Jong, who Erik ten Hag wanted throughout most of the summer. But again, it's Casemiro. He's one of the best midfielders in the world.
Anthony scored again, 3-3. Really tidy finish. Sort of got under the radar, it feels, considering they spent so much money on him and the quality of the goals he scored. We should be raving about his performances. Overall, away from the goals, what have you made of him?
I don't think we should rave about his performances. I think maybe rave about his goals and his finishing, because, as you say, he's finishing really well and his statistics are good and he's scoring in each match, and that's very encouraging for someone who's jumped up from the Dutch league to the top of the Premier League, which is where Manchester United are moving towards. I think he still needs to do more. I think he had a very good first half last night, quieter in the second half. He reminds me a little bit of Nani. I think he's got to add more to his game, just get a bit more consistent within matches. But he's doing that far more than Jadon Sancho, who lost his place in the team, and with good reason. He was particularly poor against Omonia in Cyprus on Thursday night. So you'd hope that Anthony continues to improve. He's still very young as he gets used to life in England and playing at away grounds like Goodison Park, where every single seat is full, raining, the fans are really on top here. It's very visceral going to places like that. It's very real, and he's passing the test at the moment. But I think the point you're sort of making in the question is his overall performances. We can ask questions about them, and I think he's got to add more to him. But when you're scoring goals in matches, and good goals at that, then that's always going to buy you a lot of credit.
It's been compared to Nani, a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing and a bad thing, because you can do these wondrous tricks and beat a man and go past someone, and then in the next move you can make completely the wrong option and lose position, and suddenly your team are facing a counter-attack. At his best, Nani was one of Manchester United's best players. I'm thinking 2011, 2012. at his worst, he was frustratingly inconsistent and drove fans mad.
The injury to Martial, it's interesting that he picked Martial. He wanted him to play. He wants him. He's given him an opportunity, but I think unfortunately there's been a pattern where we've yet to see a full season where his body stands up to the rigours of playing as often as the manager wants him to play. So Ronaldo comes on and gives a Ronaldo performance, which is maybe one for the ages when you think about it. Like 700 club goals is absolutely ridiculous. Like it is completely ridiculous that anybody would score that amount of goals. Messi's about to do it. No other footballer in history has done it. And because of the mood around him and because of what's happened over the last 12 months in particular, maybe I don't know, is he damaging his legacy or have we forgotten about that? Like, the finish was absolutely sensational last night, and maybe we shouldn't forget that he is one of the great footballers of all time.
One of the very greatest. I think, firstly, congratulations on 700 goals. It's an incredible achievement that he's still scoring goals. The rate's obviously dropped off this season as he's found himself on the substitutes bench. I think him and Messi will be remembered as two of the greatest players ever. And in the eyes of many people, the two greatest players ever. He's been frustrated. We saw Ten Hag speak of his frustrations last week, which meant he started on Thursday in Cyprus. He didn't score. He looked really frustrated there. Came on after 27 minutes in pretty unfortunate circumstances because it was Anthony Martial going off. And I felt quite sad for Martial. He did well when he came on in Cyprus. And I thought he started the game well at Goodison. He set up Manchester United's first goal. He's clearly a player who Eric Ten Hag likes. And I know that coaching staff like him at Manchester United. And even this position was inconceivable at the end of last term. I wrote a piece about him and his loan spell at Sevilla, and it was a flop, complete flop. So his stock was so low, and Manchester United would have definitely considered offers for him at the start of the transfer window in the summer. But he stayed. He had a good pre-season. He looks happier, but he needs to be playing more matches. It cannot be stop-start all along, and it has been too much of that with Anthony Martial. But at his best, he's a lovely player to watch. His speed of foot, he's so quick. There were a couple of reverse passes in Cyprus on Thursday. He was playing on the left, he was playing on the right. We were attacking the central spaces, and that ultimately changed the game on Thursday for Manchester United. And he got United back into the game by setting up Anthony for that really good equaliser. So I'm not aware of the extent of his injury, but I think it would be better to see him back soon, if possible, because he could be an important player this season, but he's got to be playing more.
Interesting that it was Jadon Sancho who dropped out of the side, having started every other league game so far this season, and maybe not surprising considering thought he was really poor in the Manchester derby, didn't give them an outlet at all. The ball just seemed to bounce back off him consistently, and even earlier in the season, you know, the games that he was probably getting some credit for, where he got the goal against Liverpool, didn't seem to have a huge influence. What's the sense on how he's developed at United over the past year or so?
I'm not sure he has developed. He must do more. There's been moments, as you say, the way he took the goal against Liverpool at Old Trafford in August, but he did nothing in the Manchester derby. He wasn't the only one. But what worried me more was doing nothing on Thursday night in Cyprus. A player of his talents, and I spoke to several people who've got a far higher level of football knowledge to me working in the professional game, and they were baffled that he should be running at players. The Cypriot players are not the best in the world. And he gave the ball back, played it back after a corner, which led to Manchester United going behind in Cyprus because he played the ball back to a young player who was the only player back, Tyrell Malacia, and he also came off at half-time. I like the fact that Ten Hag hooks his players if they're not playing well. There you go, you've had your chance, you've not played well, off, and you're not starting in the next matches. And that creates a good sense of team spirit, I think. Luke Shaw came in for Malacia, played very well at Goodison. But Sancho was really poor in Cyprus and didn't deserve to keep his place in the team. And didn't So he's got to do what the other players have done. He's got to work hard in training. He'll definitely get another chance. In this month alone, there are 9 matches. And when he does, he's got to do a lot more than he has been doing. It cost a lot of money, Sancho. There was a lot of excitement about him when he signed. Manchester United pursued him for a long time. And he needs to start living up to that billing and expectation because he's clearly talented.
Results like yesterday are really important in terms of being thereabouts when it comes to finishing in the top 4 this season. I think there's a fair chance we know who the champions are going to be. But after that, let's wait and see if Arsenal can maintain this form, and let's wait and see if Spurs can maintain this form. Chelsea have obviously got a new manager bounce, and some of their young players seem to have a bit more confidence and a bit of freedom around that, and he's changed the formation, which again we'll see if that squad is built for that. So it's up for grabs, and if any of those teams, including Manchester United, were to go on a run of winning games, you can see how you'd build a big lead and kind of you'd be in the top 4. That's a really good season from where Ten Hag started the year, or are the expectations still higher than that at the moment?
I wouldn't say 4th alone would be classed as a really good season. I think Manchester United need to win a trophy as well. It's now 2017. That was the last time United won a trophy, the Europa League. United are in the Europa League this season, taking it very seriously. You saw the strength of the side, which started against the group's weakest team in Cyprus. Probably going to be a strong team that starts again at Old Trafford against Neil Lennon's Ammonia on Thursday. I think your point is right. The surprise for me is Liverpool. I didn't expect Manchester United to be, I think it's 5 points clear of Liverpool. I was almost joking about it before United played Liverpool. It said if Manchester United win this game, they go level with Liverpool, and everyone was laughing about it because it just seemed absurd given how poor United's start to the season was. And I didn't expect United to beat Liverpool, but United did beat Liverpool and beat Arsenal. And yeah, Manchester City looked far stronger than everyone else. They looked like just going to walk away with the league. Chelsea, as you say, under Graham Potter, he's doing things a little bit differently. I noted that he's brought Christian Pulisic in and he scored again. He scored for the first time for them at the weekend. Tottenham look stronger, but Tottenham don't win anything. They're banned from winning anything. So that's going to be a difficult game for Manchester United next week. I'll be interested to see how United go against Tottenham there, but there's got to be far more consistency from Manchester United. One stat I worked out last night was United have got 15 points from the opponents who've played so far home and away. Against those same opponents home and away last season, United only had 10 points. So that is a significant increase. And I know that stats can prove anything, but it is pointing in the right direction, especially when you think United lost those first two matches against teams who they'd beaten last season. Erik ten Hag has now won 5 out of 6 in the Premier League. The gap with City was shown last week, but he's 7 or 8 games into his Manchester United tenure. Pep Guardiola's 6 years into his time at Manchester City. And all the indications I get internally lead to positive noises about Erik ten Hag. So I think most Manchester United fans are having their manager.
That's a really interesting week that's coming up. Newcastle at home, Tottenham at home, Chelsea away in the space of 6 days. That will, as you say, that consistency, if they could put it over those 3 games, you'd really start looking at them as top 4. Just one thing before we leave, because we've just been bemoaning UEFA and the fact they put the fixtures out and then said, actually, disregard that. We may change them. And Ger, one of those who'd flights booked to Paris to see France against Ireland, and may not happen now. That Chelsea game was only fixed the other day. Because there's obviously issues with trying to squeeze all the games in, and there seems to be security issues. It's maybe not something we're as fully aware of in Ireland around train times and how difficult it is for supporters to get to games. You're obviously very in touch with the United fans. Can you just talk about the process of how they put these fixtures on and how frustrating it is for the supporters that, and how much cost it is for the supporters that they're leaving it so late to announce games?
I think it's an absolute disgrace what has gone on. The 2 clubs and the league and the police have known about this fixture since the 31st of August and didn't settle on time for the fixture until Friday. And you say it might not be as relevant to fans in Ireland. Okay, most are not going to Chelsea away. But I know plenty of Irish Manchester United fans who go to all of the away games, I could name 10 of them now, who are waiting to book their flights. And the earlier they book them, the cheaper they are. And within a couple of weeks of a really big match away at Chelsea, they don't know when it is. And it's absolutely bizarre. I expect these type of things. I'll tell you where I've experienced these type of things in recent years. Argentina, when the Rosario derby was shifted 4 days before the game when I was there. Casablanca, I was supposed to go this month, and it was just moved. And you don't expect it in the Premier League. And this isn't on Manchester United. It's not on Chelsea. It's on the Metropolitan Police, who are giving really odd reasons. This isn't a fixture which has been blighted by violence and incident in recent years. It's pretty tame. And for them just to say, we want to reduce the ticket allocation from 2,800 to 1,500, when all those tickets have already been allocated, when fans are waiting to book their travel, and travel's really complicated at the moment, not just travelling by air. There's train strikes going on in the UK. It's expensive. Obviously, we've got the cost of living crisis as well. And I think match-going fans get forgotten about too often. And for most people who say they support Manchester United, it's not a major issue to them because they're not at matches. But you've still got 74,000 people going to all the home games and 3,000 going to every single away game. And if we had the tickets, that 3,000 would be 15,000. So it's a real lottery win when you get one of those tickets. But I think you're entitled to know when the game is. I think it's disgraceful what has gone on. And I'd like to see the Metropolitan Police held to account over this. Their job is to police events, not to decide when those events will be.
Yeah, 100%. Andy, great to have you with us. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Cheers, Andy.
Andy Mitten there. You can, of course, read his stuff in United We Stand, also in The Athletic and various other places too. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish your day. Now, here's Ireland's Niamh Fahey speaking with her own Aisling O'Reilly ahead of Ireland's massive playoff against Scotland tomorrow night about how far the women's game has come in this country.
Yeah, incredible. So you've really seen the growth of the game within Ireland and this squad. I know obviously there's not as many of the players left now, but you've really seen how much it's built within Ireland now.
Yeah, it's you know, it's been a real kind of joy to watch the progression of the game throughout my career. It's just gone from strength to strength. I never thought probably it would have gone this quickly in throughout my career, the change that has happened. But yeah, I'm so proud to be a part of it and to see where it's at now, and it's only going to go from strength to strength. So yeah, we're in a good moment now.
And what would you say are the biggest changes you've seen?
It's around everything. Every aspect has changed, from you know, player welfare to training standards, everything, nutrition, strength and conditioning, preparation. Every facet of the game has been changed around the women's game in particular, and I think that's why you've seen the growth and the strength that has come through. So every aspect, it's impossible just to pick one.
It's Niamh Fahey speaking with Aisling there at the team hotel. That was, I think, before they knew that it was going to be Scotland. I think they had a fair idea it was going to be Scotland, and then Scotland needed extra time to get over Austria. And look, I don't think the Scottish team has anything like the injury problems that we have.
No, but they are missing arguably their best player, Kim Little, who at 31 retired from international football and who they would desperately love to have. But in Cuthbert and Weir, they've got two world-class players and they don't have the level of issues that Ireland have. I think the games that we saw on Thursday night, watching that Scotland-Austria game and reading the reports on the Wales game, probably sum up what tomorrow night's game will be. They were incredibly scrappy and nervous games. Typical playoffs that you just do not want to lose. Like Wales would have been expected to beat Bosnia quite comfortably, needed extra time to beat them. So I would expect it'll be very, very tight at Hampden Park tomorrow night. And Ireland will know by the time it kicks off. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff tomorrow night for the game against Scotland. It's the last of the playoffs to get underway, so they'll know by then whether or not they have a chance of qualifying automatically for the World Cup or whether they're just looking for a win to go to the next playoff. It's still pretty complicated, to put it simply, Ger. The easiest case is that either Switzerland or Iceland lose and Ireland win, and then they would qualify automatically. But the way UEFA are doing it, they're giving you a point if you win on penalties, 3 points if you win after normal time or extra time, and that's added to your points from the group stage as well. So if Ireland were to win on penalties, it could actually get quite messy. But the main thing is you have to win.
Yeah, like even if we would feel pretty confident about going to the next round of playoffs if we win this, right?
Absolutely. If Ireland reach the playoff, which is in New Zealand in February, they will be by far and away the best team there. They'll be the highest ranked team there, but also it's going to be seeded. It's going to be divided into 3 different sections with a qualifying place for each section, and the top 3 seeds will be split up. So the most difficult team you could play is the 4th seed, and they will be well down the world rankings. They're 9 teams from all around the world, so even if Ireland were to end up in that, you would expect Ireland would qualify, but ideally they get the job done tomorrow night. Everything I've read about this suggests it's very much a 50-50 game. Scotland with a home advantage. It'll be interesting to see what sort of a crowd they can get to Hampden Park. It's obviously a big old stadium. There wasn't a great crowd there on Thursday night.
There was 11,000, which is a record.
Sorry, there
for
was
them.
11,000, but again, it's in a big stadium like that. It's the debate about Ireland going to the Aviva. 11,000 in a gigantic stadium actually feels like a very small crowd compared to when Tala is packed and you can generate a bit of an atmosphere. So I don't think it's going to be like going into the Lions Den tomorrow night. And having Niamh Fahey is a huge boost. She missed the games against Finland and Slovakia. She's one of Ireland's most experienced players, well over 100 caps, captain of Liverpool at the moment, and she'll just slot in again in defence. The problem for Ireland is in the middle of midfield, where Megan Connolly, who had played centre back in that game against Finland, she's injured. Risha Littlejohn, who had forced her way into the side over the last few games, she's out injured as well. So Vera Pauw is going to have to make a couple of changes. And obviously Jess Zhu, who had really started to make inroads into being a first choice selection, misses out. So Ireland probably missing definitely 3 of their first choice. You throw Savannah McCarthy, who was a first choice centre back in at the start of the campaign, into the mix as well. There are a few players, but listen, it's a huge night. Like, this is a night we'll be talking about for many years to come if Ireland can win.
All right. Scotland, I would say, are slight favourites. You're saying 50-50, but actually Scotland will be slight favourites?
Well, a home advantage, and I think the fact that they have Caroline Weir in midfield playing for Real Madrid, Erin Cuthbert up front. Didn't see a lot of them in the game on Thursday night. As I say, it wasn't great. It was a real struggle.
A header from a corner, a defensive mistake. That's what we're looking at.
Louise Quinn, header from a corner, 1-0.
Her whole life has been building
Bondi
up to
Beach.
this one moment. It's 8:42. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish today. Tender Chicken 56 with comment of the day so far. Power move with 2 buttons undone, Nathan.
2 buttons undone.
Yeah.
Sorry, I apologise to the nation. It's a bit early for that, isn't it?
No, I mean, everybody wants whatever gets them up in the morning, you know?
Does that get anyone up in the morning?
Stringfellow Vibes says...
Don't quite have the hair.
Carl's with us. Carl, good morning to you. How are you?
Very well, and yourselves?
Sorry for making you follow that, but, you know.
How can I follow that?
Someone has to. It was booing with the Stringfellow Vibes line, by the way. I know I said it, but actually it wasn't me at all. So, anyway, how are you?
I'm very well. Very well, thank you. Is there too much football on at the moment?
What?
Too much football?
Outrageous.
You know, I mean...
Well, we didn't need the order of the games they were yesterday.
No, we didn't need United Everton last night.
No, at first when football sort of got back to normality after COVID and every game wasn't on TV, I definitely missed it.
Yeah.
I missed the old, I did like the Sunday game and the Friday night kickoff, but then you go back to actually the other things you could be doing with your life instead of watching like Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa tonight. Does anybody really need? Should that be inflicted on a worldwide audience?
No,
just give us a night off. Yeah, just give us a night off, and we can watch Ireland tomorrow. Then
the thing about those games being on TV is that it ratchets up the pressure on how bad the manager is. So like, it's grand when it's just been the Villa fans watching Villa stinking the joint out because Steven Gerrard is Steven Gerrard. But when the rest of the world is forced to watch it, all of a sudden, like, oh, he's not very good, is he?
It is interesting, the dynamic of having your game on Sky compared to just going about your business quietly. So Leicester, because they won last week on the Monday night, everyone's talking about James Maddison for the World Cup. Brendan Rodgers, he's got a big smile on his face. We've settled things down. And then on Saturday afternoon, with nobody watching, they go and let Bournemouth come from behind to beat them. And it doesn't feel like the pressure's been really ratcheted up on Rodgers again. So tonight what you're saying, Ger, is
if Nottingham Forest, who've just given their manager a new contract, which is I actually think the first good thing that they've done in terms of like long-term planning, right? Because if they go down, he's going to bring them back up, you would hope. But they're probably still going to sack him, are they?
I'm just waiting for the hypocrisy of saying that it wouldn't be in Aston Villa's interest to stick with Steven Gerrard.
Well, because what Gerrard's track record is not of bringing the club up. Gerrard's track record is not of transforming the club. They had a guy who did that. They literally had a guy who did exactly what Cooper did, and they were like, no, he's not famous. He's not shiny.
Hammer.
He's a Villa fan. Anyway.
But Villa will stay up, will they not? Come on.
Well, they're 16th at the moment.
They will definitely. I don't know. Will they definitely? I don't know. But who like
6 goals for Villa in 8 games?
Who could you get to manage them? You know what how
Rafa Benitez.
How appealing is the job? If Rafa Benitez replaces Steven Gerrard, like
so come on, Ger.
That's
Rafa Benitez for the rest of the season or Steven Gerrard for the rest of the season. And yes, it has to be one or the other.
I would give up watching them. If they appoint Rafa Benitez after Steven Gerrard, they deserve to go down.
Explain to me this: 6 goals in 8 games, but they've got any amount of really good attacking talent. It seems with Ings and Watkins, and none of them are doing anything.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure. Ings is very good. Like Ings is like a sub you bring on for the last half hour.
Danny Ings is a nice 15 goal a season striker, isn't he? Ollie Watkins, I thought, was ready to go to another level.
Yeah, Ollie Watkins has not made any progress. Ollie Watkins is like 9/10 of a brilliant footballer, but the bit where your job is to stick it in the back of the net, that's the bit that stops it. Ange Postecoglou won't take the Villa job. Like, he's going to get a Champions League job with somebody, and he's been part of that Man City orbit before, and so 3 seasons in the Champions League of experience, getting Celtic out of a group. He could basically take any job, and any of the super club jobs he would be in the conversation for.
He's got to get Celtic out of a group, which
yeah, it's not going to happen this season,
aren't they? Yeah,
unlikely at this stage. But right, Carl, what else going on?
I've depressed him now just talking about Aston Villa for 90 seconds.
Well, Liverpool out of the Premier League title race, according to Jurgen Klopp. They lost by 3-2 to Arsenal yesterday. The Gunners back to the top of the table. Manchester United, that is, 2-1 winners over Everton. West Ham beat Fulham 3-1, and Crystal Palace were 2-1 winners over Leeds. Great game last night at Tallaght Stadium, where Rory Gaffney netted a 95th minute winner for Shamrock Rovers. That was in a 3-2 victory over Shelbourne. It means the Hoops 5 points clear now of Derry City. 4 games left to play in this season. The two sides play each other actually in the second last round of games. One game in the Premier League tonight, as we mentioned. Nottingham Forest take on Aston Villa. Kickoff for that one is at 8. UEFA says it will issue a new version of fixtures for Euro 2024 qualifying after yesterday's draw. The fixture details were confirmed last night, but UEFA now says an issue has emerged with the original calendar, and a new version will be distributed as soon as possible.
Is there anything? Are there any banking experts out there? Can I cancel the flights on my card through SEPA? Isn't that the whole point of SEPA?
Here's an idea, Ger. You know, you're mid-40s. You know, it's Paris in the springtime.
It's September.
Autumn.
Yeah.
Paris in the autumn. Why don't you just add another flight and bring your wife and have a nice romantic weekend in Paris?
Add another flight. Bad for the environment. And who'd mind the kids, Nathan?
It's fine. No, listen, I'm just trying to be helpful.
Right.
You're going to Paris by yourself, one way or another.
I was going mates to watch the game.
But you see, as you said, you screwed up completely. If you thought about this properly, you rushed into it. You could have stayed for the weekend, and you could have gone to the World Cup opener the night after.
I didn't even look at the World Cup fixtures. These two things are like separate. They're separate orbs of your brain. It's like... Anyway.
How many people do you think booked flights last night?
Oh, like loads and loads and loads to all of the away games, because they're great trips.
Yeah, Athens is a nice one, isn't
Amsterdam is class.
Yeah.
Like,
unless they play in Eindhoven.
They won't. They won't.
Anyways, you can get the old train down.
Why would they play in Eindhoven?
You might be fine. If they play in Lille, if they decide they can't play it in Paris or can't play it in the Parc de France, and they go to Lille, you get the train to Lille up in 45 minutes. Now, if they go down to Lyon or Marseille, then you're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah. I haven't been on the TGV. It's not much crack. Carl?
Yeah.
What happened to your arm?
Oh, I've got a fracture.
Again?
In my wrist. It's been fractured for a while, actually. But I only got a check last week.
Oh, playing through the pain barrier.
Yeah, well, I didn't think it was fractured, to be honest, but turns out it is, so...
Jeez, there's the golf career gone.
Yeah, I haven't played golf in 3 months, Nathan.
Wow.
Not good. So I don't know when I'm going to be able to play again, but...
Meanwhile,
anyway.
Joe is overtaking you as the best golfer in OTB.
Oh, he wasn't going along with that.
Yeah, possibly. We'll have to play a 4-ball or something, Nathan. I would like to see you and Joe square off now.
Well, I have the handicap, and I think if we did square off,
3/4 of the difference.
But,
3/4 of the difference.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like double or quits on the golf course.
Yeah.
For the award.
Yeah. Well, what's the score? 6-3, is it?
Something like that, is it?
7-3? I don't know.
You're counting, obviously.
I'm not. What happened to you?
I think it's a fractured scaphoid is the medical term. Yeah, whatever that is. So
Playing
it's down
football?
near the thumb. Yeah. Yeah.
Punching lads. That's how that happens.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't do it, folks.
It's like a football
should see him.
Big bones.
Yeah. Drink more milk, I think, is the answer.
Down from the mountain.
Yeah. So
the club fixtures, busy weekend.
Oh God, there were so many county finals.
Nothing but relentless negativity about the Kildare final.
Yeah, I was. Don't listen to other radio stations, but I was flicking while ad breaks were on, and they went to the reporter. The Kildare football final, who said, "I'm sitting beside a man who's been at every Kildare final since 1970." He said, "This is by far and away the worst one he's ever seen."
I see somebody on Twitter this morning saying the same thing, that since 98 he could remember that was the worst.
Well, 1970.
It was the negativity of the teams unwilling to put everybody behind the ball. That basically the trend a decade ago in senior inter-county football is now
fighting its way to
general
Kildare.
all over Ireland. I think it's general all over Ireland, not just Kildare.
Well, 112 to 6 points, yeah, nice. Now the weather was quite bad yesterday everywhere as well, so I mean, there was quite a few low-score matches in Longford. It was 178. Connell beat Mullaney. 1-8 to 7 in Westmeath. The Downs beat St Lomans. Port Arlington beat O'Dempsey's in Laois by 213 to 8. 110 to 1-8 it was in Wicklow for St Pat's against Bolton Glass. The Antrim final actually went to extra time. 118 to 3-9. Cargan beat Ahagallon in that match, and then the Louth final was a draw, 112 apiece between RD St Mary's and Newtown Blues. So. Yeah, I mean the weather was quite bad yesterday.
Yeah, even the best footballers in the country are playing each other in Kerry, and I saw bits of it. Like, it was tricky for them.
Yeah, but I think, I think the club season and the split season has been a huge success so far, and I think we mentioned it last week, Ger, as well, that any county players that have been speaking about the new calendar have been glowing in terms of their endorsement of it so far, and I think that has to be the baseline for the decision makers in terms of if the players are happy with it. I think that has to be the main opinion that's taken forward. The anecdotal evidence would suggest that the crowds are quite big. I think I counted 11 or 12 pages in the Irish Examiner this morning of coverage of club matches, which is brilliant. And the longer that it's left in place, the more time there is for it to bed in and for people to become accustomed to club teams maybe that aren't from their county to buy into different stories around the country. So I think
I don't know about
that
part of it, and I don't think there needs to be that part. I think the club is what it is, and as you say, big crowds, local communities coming together on a Saturday or a Sunday and going out supporting their team. And
you're never going to care about Nathan Selbridge, and
not particularly, but that doesn't mean I don't think Nathan Selbridge shouldn't have their day. And I'm definitely wary of not being a club player, of saying, well, it would be in my interest if the inter-county season went on all year long so that I'd have something to watch on the TV at the weekends for my entertainment. But for an awful lot of people, particularly I think outside of Dublin, it's what sustains them over these months.
Yeah, and I think you can appreciate the other storylines. I think if you're involved in stuff, you can appreciate a club making a breakthrough for the first time or whatever. I think you can buy into that. But as you say, Nathan, if for players that aren't from the capital, to have that certainty around the calendar is so important to play club football.
Cathal, good stuff. Thanks for that. More from Cathal across the day, of course, on Newstalk and wherever you're getting your sports these days. 8:53, OTB AM live each morning with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Time for us to turn our attention to rugby, and Alan Quinlan is with us. Alan, good morning to you. How are you?
Good, thanks, lads, and yourselves.
There's only one place for us to start here. Again.
Groundhog Day.
What's going on?
Again, yeah. It's incredible, isn't it? It's the same thing the last few weeks, but Munster in a difficult place now. It's getting worse, isn't it? And it's getting more challenging for them. Obviously, I was thinking about this before I come on. Are we going to give the full slot talking about what's wrong with Munster, or giving Connacht's credit? I think. Obviously, Munster are a big story because it's kind of concerning not just this match, but the previous matches. Probably the failure to get that bonus points against Zebra last week. That's the one that really kind of highlights where they're at. Lack of confidence, cohesion. Their discipline is bafflingly bad. And some people will say I was probably not great at the penalties at times myself, but they're making life so difficult for themselves. And again, on Friday night, you'd have to say it was a really poor performance.
Are there any specific small things that can lead to a fast recovery here? Like, we've seen teams before where 1 week they look terrible, the next week all of a sudden they bring extra aggression, they control their play at the breakdown, and the game is transformed because suddenly the backs have a split second extra on the ball and their creativity shines. Are we in that scenario where they're thinking too much, it's all a little bit self-conscious, and if they can just get into a little bit of a state of flow, there will be a significant improvement? Or is it something far more fundamental than that?
It's worrying, Ger, because I think we've seen Munster over the years when they've had a bad run of a game or two that they've been able to rely on the emotional reaction and maybe not the quality in performance, but a real fight and desire and energy to get them a result and to kind of get them back on track. I think the way the fixtures have fallen this year, the first 2 away games, they needed the zebra game really to rack up 40, 50 points. And, when you go back to that game, the first half, you think 3 tries after 26 minutes, you think they're going to get something here just to get a bit of a feel-good factor. But I think sport can be unforgiving at times when you're in a tough place. Confidence can be affected, belief. And I think obviously there's a lot going on there. There's a lot of moving parts trying to change the way they play. 10 players away with merging Ireland, lots of injuries, particularly now in the back three going into the last 2 games. So is there a quick fix solution? Are you going to see something change here? And it's hard to see it because of the fixtures in the next couple of weeks, with the Bulls at home, Leinster away, and then Ulster go to Thomond Park as well. So it's getting tougher and tougher, and when you're in a difficult place in sports, you just need to get some sort of a result. Friday night was again a great opportunity for that. When they're 8-5 up, in the second half there, they go 11-5. You think they're just needing a little bit of control here, dog it out a little bit, be tactically good, put Connacht on the back foot a little bit, and they weren't capable of doing that. Connacht reacted with they certainly believed that this was their chance of taking a scalp and winning a game and getting their feel-good factor within the group. But it's worrying, Ger, that because there's so much going on, I don't see you bring Jack Crowley and Calvin Nash and Shane Daly back into the back line for Antoine Frisch. Of course, they'll bring a new impetus and probably a real feel-good factor after the Merging Ireland tour, which should be beneficial for them. And Thomas Ahern, Dermot Byrne, Ken Dillon, Salanoa, Josh Wycherley, these guys back in. I'm not really sure, can they change things dramatically against the Bulls, who will come with a full side and they're South African internationals and a lot of power and strength. So
big game. All of a sudden, it's like a big game, isn't it?
Yeah, they're all big games now, and I think all eyes are on Munster. I think he just had a really deflating kind of feeling on Friday night. You know what? It's hard to see the results coming in the next few weeks, but it is what it is. They're in this position. If I was a player in the dressing room, you'd be feeling the pain of and the disappointment of it, but they've got to try and stick together and claw their way out of this, really. It's not a case of a load of internationals are going to come back and fix everything and they're going to get their best team out in the field. I think when they get their best team out in the field, obviously they'll be able to give most teams a game and get results, but that's not the nature of the league, and it's a really difficult situation for them, and you're trying to find a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here, but it's difficult because there's a lot of self-destruct here as well from the players with their I just looked at the game the other night. They come up with a big play, a big turnover from Tyg Byrne or Peter O'Mahony, or a steal and line out in a vital area. You take away a little bit of impetus from from Connacht, and then Ben Healy misses touch twice from penalties. The ones that are kicked down the touchline, they lose the next line out. They've no ruthless kind of relentless kind of pressure that they put on the opposition. And their body language is kind of indicating that. So I think the players are trying hard, and obviously they're trying to fix this. And there's certain things in that game. And you have to be respectful to Connacht. Like, it isn't the case of Munster should go up there and win the game by 10, 12 points or 15 points or whatever. But there's a vulnerability about this team now that everybody is going for. And the proof is in the results, so it is very worrying and concerning. I think one of the things that jump out are the penalties. As I said, 52 penalties, and the pressure came on Connacht there at the end of that game, and they just gave away lots of penalties, which is really killing them. 52 in the 4 games is a very, very high number, and they're not scoring points either. They're not scoring tries. They're making no line breaks practically whatsoever. Yeah,
it is bleak. Like, there's nothing that you can point to and say, well, we're doing this right and we're doing that right.
Connacht left the door open for them as well. Like, Connacht should have been well ahead at half time. Munster found themselves in a position actually where Connacht had also, lost their opening 3 games. There can't have been a huge amount of confidence there. There's a huge opportunity. Like, as you say, there's it's very bleak. Like, what does Graham Rowntree do? Does he look at those emerging Ireland players and say, you're all going straight in? Like, what happened on Friday night against Connacht is unacceptable to 7-8 of those players. You're coming out, you're not going to play against the Bulls, you're not going to play against Leinster. Like, do some of the individuals need to be taken out of this?
Yes, they do. And that's the reality. They've got to be taken. He's got to change something up now and try and look to play the younger players, I think, because it doesn't get any easier, Nathan, in the next few weeks. So if you're going to possibly end up still struggling and still maybe losing games, there needs to be a change. There needs to be a change of the guard. And look, this is going back. There's maybe we all didn't realise how kind of difficult and bleak this situation is. But there's problems there for a number of years, and there's probably player recruitment, the coaching style, maybe the standards, fitness levels. They don't look the fittest team. So I think you have to put in young players there as best you can, and make changes. Obviously, you don't just kind of throw everything away. They'll have to try and keep some power and strength and experience for the Bulls at the weekend. But I think if there's going to be any kind of positivity garnered, they've got to strip this right back again and look to try and see and develop for the future. I think a few people have mentioned to me. I think people mentioned obviously a lot in the last couple of weeks about Joe Schmidt losing the first number of games when he came in. People are hoping that that's the case here. But also in 2015-16, I think Leinster, unearthed a lot of really good young players when they played them in Europe. They'd lost 5 games in the pool stages. And
when Joe Schmidt came in, Leinster won the Champions Cup 18 months previously and had some of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah,
this is a Munster side that have been on a drift for many years at this stage.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's not like for like here. So it's really worrying, but it's a reality now. So this is the reality of where Munster are at.
So get on with it, basically.
Technically, they're the 4th best team in Ireland at the moment, and that's the reality.
Yeah.
None of those Munster players can go in this morning thinking they should be on Irish teams now because they're part of a group that's really struggling. They've got to stick together. They've got to try and figure it out themselves and get better. I think they are better than what we've seen. Their confidence is all over the shop, I think, and now there's a nervousness that's there that's probably translating into their performances. Some of the basics there are, really alarming. I think, like I said, big play in a game, big turnover, kick the ball down the field, lost line out straight away.
Yeah.
You just can't win matches like that.
Not to make this all about Munster, Connacht have to get some credit for it, but as Nathan said, Connacht, they are also a team who were short of confidence and look like that at stages, but managed to stay together enough to get through that test. How important was it for them to get that? Because their season was also really, like, it had been a terrible start by their standards, under difficult circumstances notwithstanding, but all of a sudden, a full house, a new pitch, and they can feel good about life.
Yeah, they can feel good about life maybe till Friday night, as long as they back it up, and it gets incredibly difficult for them as well, with Leinster going there on Friday night to Sports Ground. But yes, it's, you know, they played 3-10s and they Jack Carty and David Hawkshaw, Conor Fitzgerald, and I think for the Finlay Beelum try, Conor Fitzgerald's kick was outstanding. He put his team right down there. Conor Phillips, you would say, probably should have kept the ball in field. But I think they can feel really good about themselves, I think. And sometimes it is back to a bit of brass tacks when you're struggling. And they showed a lot of fight and a real tempo and energy in that particularly in that second half, to, you know, just look like they were in control against Munster, like really kind of concerning and stuff. Maybe it's not, maybe it's disrespectful to Connacht for me to say something like that, because they do deserve a lot of credit. They're, you know, they've less resources. I think Munster obviously is still a big scalp for everyone, but where Munster are at the moment, it was maybe we were naive to think that you know, this Connacht shouldn't win this game, that Connacht won't win this game. I thought Munster might go there and get a result and claw their way through it, but Andy Friend you know, said it after the game. There was lots of mistakes from both sides, but they had more of a fight. They had more of an energy and an urgency about them. So they can build on that, and they were very physical, and they put a huge amount of pressure on Munster's scrum, their breakdown, and forced them into a lot of mistakes, and defended unbelievably well at times, and really has had all those energy busters throughout the game when they, you know, obviously with the crowd behind them as well. So it was a great result for them. Jack Carty missed those 3 kicks, so it could have been a bit more. And it was the same as that result last year, where it was 10-8 on the 1st of January last year. It should have been a lot more. And this one, you could say the same, and the best team won on the night and deserved to win.
Yeah. The performance that Leinster put in, I'm sure the defensive analysis that happens this morning will be like, oh, how did we manage to concede? But the attacking analysis will be like, well, we're pretty good at this game when we have the ball and we're in full flow. So one of those matches that went up and down, loads of tries. I don't know if everybody likes seeing that, but it was pretty exciting.
Yeah, it was an incredible game. It was one of those ones where the clock just flies by, and it was, you know, the Sharks are missing a good few players. They're internationals, and, you know, it kind of felt the way Leinster started the game and scored so early in the game that it would be kind of one-way traffic. But they were brilliant, the Sharks, and led a couple of times during that game, and was really tight up to the last kind of 20 minutes. 15-20 minutes where Leinster kicked away. They scored 8 tries, but they conceded 5, and the 5 they conceded were outstanding scores. I think the attack and the lines of running of the Sharks, and if you bring in back into, you know, you think Eben Etzebeth, Hendricks at a scrum half, Lucanu Ambanambi the hooker, Mapimpi the winger, Oxenshade the prop, Khaleesi, the South African captain, if you put them back into that side, and this makes it even more worrying for the likes of Munster and Connacht to try and get Champions Cup. The South African teams are absolutely flying it, and they're going to be very, very difficult. It's the 4 of them could be in Europe. It makes it so much harder for the likes of Munster and Connacht now to try and get Champions Cup.
Yeah.
Or even get in the playoffs. It was a brilliant game, but Leinster, I think they showed their mettle, and the contrast of that game on Saturday to what was on Friday night was miles apart. They were absolutely brilliant, and the depth. Sexton again showed unbelievable fight, drive, desire, wanted to stay on the field for the whole game. If there's any fault, he probably had a few interventions with the referee and a good few occasions which came out on TV a fair bit, but Leinster were really, really impressive.
Ulster also going particularly well at the moment, kind of a little bit under the radar in some ways, but they've had injury problems. They've had players who they want to have in their squad who are obviously away with the Emerging Ireland, will be back obviously next week, but apart from that 1 week where against Leinster, they've been machine-like.
Yeah, they have. Very impressive and look really confident in what they're doing, getting a little bit of an edge, scoring tries again from mauls, being really physical with the opposition. Now, it was a different Ospreys team. They're down a good few players as regards the Welsh internationals, but it had an inevitable kind of feeling early on again. The game was over at half-time. They were utterly dominant. And I think when they get their tails up, Ulster in the Kingspan, they play some brilliant rugby. The flow, the pace, the tempo to their game is very impressive. So Luke Marshall was brilliant in the centre. Nick Timoney, just so involved in everything. Marcus Ray, they have a lot of flow to their game at the moment, and they look to be in a really good place. It's not the hardest fixture in the world with respect to the Ospreys. So, Leinster exposed a few frailties to be at the top level, but they're full of confidence at the moment, and they blew the Ospreys away with that performance on Saturday night.
All right, Quinny, good stuff. We'll leave it there for now. Plenty more talk during the week. Thanks a million, Alan.
Cheers, lad. Thanks.
Breaking news.
Oh, celebrations.
Now,
potential celebrations in the Gilroy household.
Yeah. I just realised, of course,
could still be a lonely man in the pub in Paris on a Saturday night.
Not the worst outcome. If that's
that invite
Thursday
to
night.
Backstage at the Moulin Rouge still
Thursday
open
night
from 2016.
Well, that was never made to me. I didn't go looking for it.
Oh, you didn't.
How did you find out about it?
They
targeted you, did they?
No.
Well, no.
The invites, turned it down. It was one of those terrible invites where it's like, oh, do you want to come to the Moulin Rouge? We'll give you the full backstage tour and everything. It's like, unbelievable. Yes, of course we will do such a thing. Just turn up at midnight.
The Moulin Rouge is just a fancy strip joint.
Just turn up at midnight.
Is that what it is?
Just turn up at midnight and bring your €180 that we're going to charge you for the pleasure. God damn it, that's not what we're looking for here.
Not on my
Anyways, the big news, Ger, the big news. No change to the fixtures.
Yeah, no change to the fixtures.
So they remain as is date-wise. No venues yet. There's no rush on venues. They don't need to announce the venues until a few months beforehand. So I expect that they will announce earlier than that.
They need to tell everybody where to go.
Yes, they do. But it's not till next September.
Yeah, but the fans need to book tickets.
Yeah, because I can imagine in the French Football Federation right now, all they're thinking about is
the Ireland
the
fans.
Ger Gilroys of this world and how they might be stuck in Paris.
They have the ability to forward plan, I would assume. They have a whole office whose job it is just to get the fixtures right.
Very true.
Anyway, it's the games. It's the France-Holland games. Will they be important? You kind of assume they won't be that important.
Why won't they be important?
Because they'll just beat everybody else.
Well,
the two of them got through.
See, I think this is... You don't know what's going to happen in all the other games. So Greece suddenly... So you manage to go and beat France at home and you have a Shane Long-style moment, and then France draw away in Greece. Suddenly, if you win your games against Greece and you win your games against Gibraltar, you got quite a head start on them. So France-Netherlands is the first game. So Ireland have a break night on the first night of fixtures, where I presume the way UEFA work, they probably have to play a friendly against somebody. But it's France-Netherlands and Gibraltar against Greece, and then Ireland play France in Dublin on the Monday night, 27th of March. So if the Dutch have gone and won in Paris, where presumably they'll play that game, and then Ireland can take something against France, suddenly the French are in crisis.
Greece seem decent.
Yeah, they have a decent squad there. Now, their squad looks not dissimilar to an Irish squad when you go through it, and there's not too many goals scored by anybody.
No goals. The games are all 1-0 basically. They beat Kosovo 2-0 and they beat Cyprus 3-0. But Northern Ireland, they beat 1-0. They beat them 3-1 actually at home.
The draw is so lopsided. Like, you look at the draw that Northern Ireland got. Like, Ireland could not have been more unlucky with, firstly, the top two sides they got. Obviously, you have Italy and England in another side, and with Ukraine as well. So, two more of the better teams. Like, Wales are in with Croatia, Armenia, Turkey, and Latvia, and they might feel that they were unlucky to get Turkey in there. Another group: Poland, Czech Republic, Albania, Faroe Islands, Moldova.
Yeah, not great for us. And maybe it is great. All those mid-ranking teams who are slightly ahead of us will all get in automatically. It's just the good teams you'd be concerned about.
Northern Ireland have Denmark, Finland, Slovenia, Kazakhstan, and San Marino.
Yeah, we would have fancied our chances, would we? Who's out Denmark and who?
Finland.
Yeah, okay. Norway were the team that Scotland got. That was the benefit of them finishing. So they've got to deal with Erling Haaland.
And Spain.
Twice. Yeah, so Spain will finish as their number one. Scotland were the number two, and then Norway was the most difficult team after that. Right, it's 16 minutes past 9. OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish today. Here's what's on OTB Sports Radio today. James McLean is OTB Gold at 1 o'clock. Splonk at 3. Our classic game club is Dublin versus Kerry in 2001. OTB Gold is Ray Boom Boom Mancini, and the show is live tonight with Joe Malloy in the hot seat from 7.
Stephen Kenny's
on the show.
Ball tonight.
Yeah, talking about the fixtures. Follow OTB across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB podcast network for all the best in the latest sports content. We're back after these with the Anfield Wraps. Harriet Prior and just what the hell's going on with Liverpool at the moment. Next.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
Pat Nevin last night was talking about Liverpool and the Reels. I gave him, we were tight for time, one question about Liverpool. I was picking out, different aspects, and he said, I just think the way their midfield is at the moment, the smart, I know Jurgen loves that formation. Just watch, next couple of weeks, I think he'll go 4-2-3-1. 24 hours later. Less than 24. So imagine how brilliantly Nevin must see the game.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette. Get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
Harriet Prior, good morning to you. How are you?
Yeah, morning. I'm not bad, thanks. How are you?
So last week it felt like the change in formation was something that might unlock better performances from everybody in the team, and fast forward to yesterday and that has not been the case. What do you think is at the core of why Liverpool's league form is so bad at the moment?
Oh, honestly, I wish I could answer that question simply. I think the manager wishes he could as well. It just feels like there was a total lack of confidence and we're just being played through far too easily. I mean, I feel like it's been a running theme this season that we've got on the back foot really quickly, and yesterday it was quicker than ever. And I walked into the pub a minute late and we were already a goal down. I think that just sums it up, doesn't it, really? And then straight away we're on the back foot and having to find a way back. And we did find a way back twice. But when you're constantly on the back foot and looking for a way to get past and not even in the lead in the game, you never have control. I think we've just lacked control at too many times this season, and it gets in the player's head, and as a result the performance was so scrappy. I think that's the best way to describe it. It was like none of them wanted to take responsibility, none of them knew where they should be, none of them looked like they were in the right position, none of them were getting back and tracking back well enough, and the defensive line was really bad. So there's loads of problems, and I think the new formation looked a lot better against Rangers, but we came up against Arsenal, who are a much higher calibre of opposition, and we really struggled. So it was a really disappointing performance.
Poor Trent is in that position that every time Liverpool concede a goal, the camera comes straight on him on the assumption that he is responsible. I don't know how much you can blame him for the first goal, but the second goal in particular really struck me as a player who is totally out of form and lacking confidence, like dashing across, trying to prove that he could get across and help cover when the sensible option was just to stay put. Does it feel as if this injury he's picked up, it might be a blessing in disguise in a way to just take him out of the spotlight for 3-4 weeks?
I don't think I'll ever call an injury a blessing, especially at the moment with the situation we are having more injuries creep in. Look, I think it's really easy, isn't it, to make Trent a scapegoat, and I completely agree for that second goal. I think he looked panicked. I think he came across when he should have just stayed in the position he was in, but I think that's all coming from a lack of confidence and an awareness the spotlight is on him, so he needs to be seen to be doing something. I do feel for him, because I think he has made a scapegoat for a lot of things. I think a lot of the time it is starting with the fact that the press isn't good enough at the other end. The attackers aren't tracking back in the way they used to, not putting as much pressure on the ball, and it's leaving more holes in defence. The defenders aren't doing well enough either. The control of the midfield isn't there, and you can go through the pitch and identify problems, can't you? And I guess Trent being in the wrong position when a lot of their goals come down, the opposition goals come down that side is a problem. We have to wait and see the extent of the injury. The same with Diaz. I personally wouldn't want him to be out for very long. I think he's one of the on his day, the best players in this team. And like all of them, we all know their ability and how well they can play. It's just not happening at the moment. They're not playing as a unit, and that's what's frustrating me the most. I think a lot of their success in recent seasons has come from this cohesion that they all had. They all seem to sense where each other are without even knowing and looking. And this year, it just feels like there's a total lack of cohesion, and they're all playing as individuals and not as a single unit.
Is that in any way energy related? Are they doing less work? That seems to be the sense that some people have, is that they're not actually programmed the way they were, and as a result, the running isn't cohesive, so they don't do it in groups, and because they're not doing it in groups, one person goes to try and close down, they're on their own, they're isolated, so they stop. It just feels like that confusion is leading to what we termed intensity was spoken about earlier on, but that as a result of that, they appear to be less intense, because it's not like they don't want it, surely. They obviously are desperate for success.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that they are desperate for success, and you can also see how much it's annoying them all and upsetting them all that it's not happening at the moment. I think it might come down to the fact that if all of them are 2%, 3%, 4% off the game, at this level of professional football, you cannot afford for every single player on that pitch to be trying 2% less hard, to be running back 3% less. It's just that those tiny margins are making such a big difference when we're getting caught in certain moments and getting caught on the break really quickly. And I don't know if it's particularly an effort thing, because like you mentioned, they all want it. They all want to try hard. They all want to be winning football matches. But I think some of it comes down to the fact that maybe they're mentally exhausted, maybe they're physically exhausted. A lot of people talk about hangover from last season. I'm not sure how much that has an impact. I think Virgil van Dijk seemed to suggest that they might still, especially at the beginning of the season, they might still be suffering from the consequences at the end of last year. But ultimately now they need to regroup and kick on from here. They can't be thinking back to last season, because yes, we're in the final of everything, but now we're in a position where we've got to be picking up points in the league to be pushing on for top four, let alone winning a title, which Klopp said yesterday is we're not in the race anymore. So yeah, I think if every single person on the pitch is running 2% less, trying 2% less, that's contributing to a worse performance overall, and we're not winning football games. That's the bottom line of it.
It's been interesting listening to Klopp's press conferences over the last couple of weeks. I've never heard him discuss tactics as much as he has, and explaining what the roles of players are, of what Trent Alexander-Arnold's role in defending him, by saying, actually, I don't look at him as a defender. I look at him as someone who I want to push far up the pitch. And again, talking about that breakdown between the different lines. He's gone into a lot more depth. I'm wondering about your confidence levels of his ability to turn this around, because the one previous crisis Liverpool had was put down to a lot of injuries at the time, but they really did struggle to turn that round. They managed to scrape through to a Champions League place miraculously in the end. That this is getting away from them. Do you see enough from Klopp that he's ready to make the changes that are necessary to get the confidence back and get the results turned?
Yeah, I have no doubt in the manager, to be honest. If there's one person that I'm absolutely not doubting, it's the manager. And you can look at certain substitution that you don't agree with, and that's all well and good. But if there's anyone that is going to be able to turn this around, it is Klopp. So for me, there's absolutely no doubt that he is the right person to be in this position and to be taking Liverpool forward. And he's mentioned lots of times that you can try and identify problems and the solutions take a lot longer to come around. I think he is the only person that I really trust to be able to get the best out of these players and to be able to get their confidence levels back up to where they should be. So yeah, absolutely. For me, I don't want to get dragged into any conversations about whether Jurgen Klopp is the right person to be managing Liverpool, because he absolutely is.
What about the fans' attitude towards the owners at the moment, and what happened during the summer in terms of investment away from Darwin Núñez? Like, You look at Manchester City, they score more goals than anybody else last season, they win the league, and they go out and sign the best young striker in the world. And even Arsenal's resurgence, as well as Mikel Arteta has done, like, they've improved because they've signed really good players. They signed Gabriel Jesus, they signed Alexander Zinchenko. They've had a plan over the last year signing really good, talented young players. It does feel as though Liverpool have rested on their laurels a little bit, particularly in that midfield area. And does that come down to the owner's reluctance to spend the money necessary? Because when you do go back over the recent history, like, Liverpool's success has come from buying Alisson, from buying Virgil van Dijk, from buying the best players in their position in the world, and they've stopped doing that.
Yeah, I definitely think there needs to be a refresh in the squad, and a lot of that does need to come from a reinvestment in the squad. And I think the frustration is maybe that it hasn't happened in the summer transfer window, particularly looking at midfielders. But you could maybe argue over the last few seasons when we've been on top, that's the time we should continually be strengthening. And maybe for the last couple of transfer windows, that hasn't happened. Having said that, they did bring Diaz in and they did bring Núñez in, and you can look at a lot of individuals they have brought in that have really improved this side. However, there's not been enough, particularly in midfield, particularly in that area. I think is frustrating for a lot of Liverpool fans that we've come into this season with so many midfielders who we know are injury prone, who we know are ageing, and who we know are too young to be making a real impact week in, week out. And we haven't got many in that middle ground who can really make an impact. And look, you're in a position now where if Thiago is fit, if Henderson is fit, if Fabinho is fit, you've got three really good midfielders. As soon as one of them drops off, you're really struggling, and people even questioning, the midfielders' forms I said there, and they didn't have their best game yesterday either. But that particular area is a source of frustration for all Liverpool fans, and I understand that, and that's only for future transfer windows to sort out. We can't do that now, so we're going to have to look internally for solutions in the meantime.
Any idea what's going on with Mo Salah?
No, but he does look devoid of confidence. I think, like a lot of them, he's not been able to make the impact in the game that I think he'd have liked to. And he, down that right-hand side, combining with Trent, that their link-up is usually so smooth, so solid. You can really continually see the positions they're trying to get in for each other. And at the moment, he's become a little bit anonymous in some games. He didn't make a really big impact yesterday. And I think when he's had really good seasons or really good months, it's because he's literally continually made an impact in every single game, and opposition are putting two defenders on him to deal with him. They've not had to do that at the moment. He's not the threat that he once was. Do I believe that he will get back to that level again? Yes, but I believe that about all of them. And I would never have said in that season where we lost all our defenders that we would have ended up with Champions League football. So I don't think all is lost at this point. And I don't think all the players that are playing not at their best won't get back to that level. I think a lot of people are suggesting that's sort of Salah done. I'm not on that page. Only time will tell, but he certainly does look devoid of confidence and devoid of the impact that he usually has.
Is there anything to do with Sadio Mane not being in the team, that the partnership that they had, although, I don't know, if whatever that level of creative tension they had, it certainly inspired them both to greatness, that he just doesn't quite have that? It's not just Trent, it's actually with the other forwards as well.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because actually from all the problems that we've had, I wouldn't necessarily say that losing Sadio Mane is one of the major ones, because I think that he was majority of the time playing on the left for Liverpool, and Diaz has come in and fulfilled that role really well. So if you're talking man for man, have we replaced Sadio Mane? I think we did with Diaz, and obviously then we brought in another forward to come through the middle. So I don't necessarily think that Sadio Mane was the reason that Salah's levels were pushed so high, because I think he sets his own expectations. He makes sure that he's playing to his own high standards. Maybe obviously like your teammates obviously do push you on, and I think that they'll still be doing that for Salah. So for me, Sadio Mane leaving, yes, he's missed, and yes, there's definitely been times this season where I'd love him to have been in the team and been able to make an impact, but I don't attribute the problems we're having to his departure.
What is the mood like in the pub with the fans? Like, what are they saying? Because obviously you're taking a long-term view here, and you believe that things will right themselves over the course of the season. However, whatever it is that sparks that, is that the general view, or is there a bit more despair going, considering the high highs that the team has been at so recently, that they're so far away from them at the moment?
Yeah, obviously everyone has their own viewpoints and own experiences of how they want to support the football club. There's a lot of frustration, I would say, and I think there's times in the game when you can literally feel, when we can see the goal early in it, and it feels like everyone just goes a bit quiet because it's almost inevitable. But there's not a sense of shock or surprise anymore when we go a goal down. I think that's maybe the worst thing, that it's like a sense of inevitability that we're going a goal down, and then a sense of lack of belief that we can get back and win the game. And I think when we went 3-2 down yesterday, everyone I was watching with had kind of just accepted that might be it. We might not be able to find a way back into the game, and that is how it transpired. So, yeah, obviously some fans are, further along that level of frustration. Some are more positive about it. I think it's difficult to find a lot of positives about the game yesterday, definitely, but it's just a bit of it's just really frustrating when you know what the team's capable of, because it's not a million miles off of a team that played so incredibly last season. It's only one real personnel change, and I don't believe that's had that as big an impact as the downfall of the team so far this season.
All right, Harriet, we'll leave it there. Good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
It's Harriet Prior from the Anfield Wrap giving us some thoughts on that. Will the fans get pissed off at the owners? Like, at some point, do they realise that there's been an alchemist managing to turn the base lead into gold?
Look, they are obviously going up against a Manchester City side with all that money from Abu Dhabi, and maybe this is the natural cycle that Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Manchester United have gone through, that it's impossible to sustain things against Manchester City right now. And I do wonder about Luis Diaz. I understand that he plays in the same position, and he's actually been one of Liverpool's best players this season, and he'd be a big loss, but he definitely plays in a different way to Sadio Mane. Even the pace,
more individualistic.
What I always found with Mane, when the ball would come to him, he'd just start walking, and you wonder then how that clicks in with everything around. It gives people more time to come up, so he'll walk in towards the middle of the pitch, and Robertson will go on the outside, and it was almost as if they were preordained moves, probably were preordained moves that would happen when he did that, whereas Diaz does everything at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And how that unsettles other parts of the team, despite the fact he has been one of Liverpool's better players, and he'd be a huge loss if he's going to be out for any sustained period of time. But you have to go and buy the best. Now, they've bought Fabio Carvalho and Harvey Elliott. Harvey Elliott looks like an unbelievable talent, and maybe in a year or 2 years he's ready to hold that team.
But where?
What
type of player is he? What position?
Well,
an 8.5?
It feels that way, yeah, but not in the way Liverpool play at the moment.
Maybe he's a 10?
Potentially. You do look at Liverpool at the moment, it's still in that 4-3-3, so Carvalho will play on the left potentially. Could Diaz play instead of Salah and put Salah into the middle? But then Nunez is starting to play quite well. They do like to get Elliott on the ball a little bit deeper. He just feels a little bit light, and understandably so, he's still so young. So there's no quick fix, and like next week I imagine Liverpool fans will be going to Anfield with quite a bit of trepidation, because it could show just how far they've fallen, considering like the games between Liverpool and City over the last 5 years have been as good as we have ever seen in the Premier League, and Liverpool have always managed to get to their level, and Mo Salah in that Manchester City game has always delivered. He's always the one who steps up, and I know he didn't play well yesterday.
Why are you taking him off? I still don't understand. Was it like maybe there was a marker,
more
maybe
games, maybe he's thinking about,
but you need a winner.
Maybe there's something coming up on his GPS that suggests
you're going for it. Maybe
something like that.
He was only ever going to get an hour, but like, I don't know. It didn't feel that way, did it?
No, I still think I'm never taking Salah off.
Like, what if he scores the goal in the 94th minute that turns his season round?
Yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, that's why Jurgen Klopp gets paid the big bucks. OTB AM is brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. A lot of comments coming through. The midfield has been a problem since Ronaldo went, and he had a rough season and is now wasted. That's Ian Clark. And Kieran O'Doherty says, Cogordahus to all in the OTB team on their award at the weekend. Very well deserved. Kickstart my day every morning. Baller94 says, Klopp out. He's obviously joking. Kevin Wolf says, Munster are presently not holding a single weapon, never mind a rounded game. Conor Costello says, you normally have 24 hours to amend flights, so I'd get onto them straight away. Don't need to amend the flights. Or maybe I should probably cancel them and wait until see where it is. Maybe that's...
Well, they also add more flights once the game is confirmed.
To a city as big as Paris? Do they not have like...
No, they'll
do they have extra
add,
capacity?
Yeah.
Casemiro is brilliant. If he was playing in the Brazil team against Belgium, they wouldn't have lost that game in the World Cup. Man United are lucky to have him, says Standing on the World. And Micheál O'Connor says, constant Liverpool and United chat, dismissal of Arsenal, only Liverpool who are awful, only Spurs who haven't been great this season. My point about Liverpool was that you can no longer say we've made it because we've beaten this Liverpool team, because they're going to be one of those teams who look great in your CV that you beat over the course of the season.
They beat Tottenham last week as well, Arsenal. Like a Tottenham team who are hard to break down. It's a real shame. Arsenal Man City was meant to be on next week, Wednesday week, but they had to call it off because Arsenal had to get the Europa League game back in. So that would have been the proper old test. Now maybe it sets up beautifully and they go, let's reschedule this for the second last Wednesday of the season.
Yeah, I just think as well that like for Arsenal to really convince us all, they're going to have to win the league.
No, they don't. They've convinced me. They've convinced me already. And this is the problem, that we're saying for Arsenal to convince us they need to win the league. They don't need to win the league. If they finish second, it's an unbelievable achievement.
What does it mean?
They're going up against the Manchester.
What does it mean? Jose Mourinho finished second at Man United.
Progress.
Jose Mourinho. So you got to. Okay, they've had a breakout season. I will give you that. If they finish second, it's a breakout season.
Some of the best attacking talent in the world. They've strengthened defensively. He's got the likes of Granit Xhaka playing far better than they've ever played for Arsenal before, and they're going up against Behemoth in Manchester City that are probably going to be unstoppable. To say that because they might finish second would somehow not be seen as success.
I'm not.
Makes absolutely no sense.
Well,
because there's going to be no success for anybody. There's going to be no success for anybody in the Premier League for the coming years.
Maybe not. Maybe there won't. I just.
You cannot watch our.
I think they have to win something, right? And like that means go win the Europa League. Like that.
But again, I get the trophy, and trophies are important. Like, does winning the FA Cup make it a successful season?
No.
A more successful season than finishing second? But you're saying they have to win a trophy.
Well, I'm saying that Arsenal have to just prove to me over the long term that this isn't just a one season thing, right? They've definitely got loads of talent who are playing very well at the moment, but it's been a short period of time, and in the past, very recently, they've been flaky. There was a bit of the old Arsenal about them at the end of last season when it was right there for them and they couldn't get it over the line. Now, since then, they've strengthened. Will they strengthen again next year? I don't know. The track record isn't of relentless investments. It's been lumpy investment where we pile on, and this time it seems to have been at least with a plan, and it seems to be working, and their manager seems to be good. But just consider me a doubting Thomas. I want to put my hand in the bloody wound and get the flesh and go, yeah, okay, you are the same thing. This is real.
Look, they need to invest again, and they need more depth, because what happens if Gabriel Jesus gets injured? I know Kenny Cunningham loves him and was raving about him. I thought Liverpool got a lot of joy down Tommy Asu's side, but he's only there because both Zinchenko and Tierney weren't playing, and they probably need a little bit more in midfield as well. But if you're an Arsenal fan right now, I think you're very excited, and like Martinelli, he's got to be in the Brazil squad.
When you talk about the Arsenal fans, it's been a magical week for Owen Sheehan in many different ways.
He's mushrooming over in Mexico.
Micheál O'Connor says, I'm delighted Nathan is challenging Ger over the long term. Look at the points totals over the last 3 years. You don't get a special prize for points totals over 3 years. You don't.
Who are we talking about here?
I presume it's Arsenal.
As opposed to who? Liverpool?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I think Liverpool had one season there where they've got to be finishing top four on a regular basis, but they have the potential. They need to be able to keep those players.
Finish top four.
If you're Manchester City going, she's Martinelli. I know we've got Grealish. Maybe we'll get rid of Grealish. Maybe we'll get Martinelli in.
If you're City.
Yeah.
The Grealish is playing well again. Shells won the first division, says Peter M. Last year, and OTB were all over it. Over 6,000 at a Cork City game Friday night for the third time this year, and nothing. What do we get up in Dublin? Nothing. Get Johnny Ward on tomorrow and we can grill him. Grill him away in the comments. Tell us. We'll grill him for you. For sure.
Well done, Cork. Good to have Cork back in the Premier Division.
Yeah. Nothing about Cork City, nah, says Peter M. There you go. Nathan has patronised you by saying it's good to have you back in
it is. As we know, there's far too many teams from Dublin in the Premier Division.
For sure, Nathan Murphy can replace Stephen Kenny. He seems to know it all, says Prior.
Wow.
It's a compliment. It's 9:30.
Sure doesn't read like one.
9:38. We're brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. We're back tomorrow with Shane back in studio as we build up to Ireland's enormous 8 p.m. kickoff against Scotland at Hampden Park. Game's live and off the ball.
It is, yeah.
The former Leinster and Ulster prop Jack McGrath will also be on the line. The former Leinster and current Ulster prop Jack McGrath will also be on the line, plus much more besides. Right now, we're going to leave you with a snippet from the Sunday paper review. Enjoy. See you tomorrow.
The draw for Euro 2024 is ongoing. I appreciate this is the paper review, but this draw is touched on in the papers, and it's quite interesting. If you read in advance of the draw, Paul Rowan on page 7 of the Sunday Times, he's talking about really what Stephen Kenny would desperately want to avoid. He says from pot 1, from pot 2 rather. Pot 1 is going to be difficult regardless, but certainly from pot 2, we want to avoid France, England and Serbia. Well, we've got France. And then from pot 4, Ireland being in pot 3, the danger there comes in the shape of Greece or Turkey. Well, we've got Greece. So really it's about as difficult as you could anticipate. So it's France, Netherlands, Ireland, Greece, and just laterally I see Gibraltar thrown into that group as well. So right away you look at that and you say, well, top 2 qualify. Ireland are not going to qualify certainly that route. It's going to be playoff again because, I don't know, you need luck as a manager, and there were definitely other groups there which would not have been as scary, but France, Netherlands, and the danger then from Greece behind. In some ways, Greece could be the trickier tie. If you take a hiding here or there against France, Netherlands, it could be forgiven potentially, but you don't want to finish behind Greece as well. That's when things get very sticky. But I don't know, what do you say? You need to be a lucky general sometimes, Sarah.
You seem very optimistic, Joe.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it's that whole thinking fast, thinking slow. That Daniel Kinnaman book. So at a certain point, your instinctive reaction here could just be the right one. Oh no, we're screwed.
I don't see why this shouldn't be just a challenge, you know, as with everything else. Their ranking is their ranking. They were always going to be up against it. They could have had an easier draw, but everything they do from here on in will be bonus territory, I think, you know, and that's the way I would be looking at it. Kieran, you might disagree.
I think I'm excited by the draw. Like, I know it's very hard, but I just think, you know, a lot of fans will go, wow, we're playing France, we're playing Netherlands. And even though it would be very hard to finish the top 2, I think that would have been the case anyway. But I always thought the likeliest route is because of the convoluted system with the Nations League, more than likely we'll have a playoff unless, you know, there's a few unlikely results down the road. But, I think there will be an excitement out of France coming here, Netherlands coming here. There are also the advantage for fans as well. You can get direct flight to Paris, presuming the game is in Paris. You can direct flights to Amsterdam. You can get direct flights to Greece. That is very attractive when, you know, the last few years when you've been going to Armenia or Kazakhstan has been very complicated, and it's been, you know, in football terms, it's obviously hugely challenging. But it was 7 years ago yesterday since Ireland beat Germany, you know, and it was Shane Long's goal. Yeah. And sometimes something, you know, Netherlands didn't qualify for the last World Cup. You know, there are teams that can... You can just get them on a certain day. Like, it's unlikely you're going to finish top 2. I agree Greece would be tricky, but I think I can see positives in it. Like, I just think the whole... I know there's there people are very vocal about Kenny and the project, and there's excitement around it. But I think to grab the attention of a wider public, you haven't had a big glamour team play in Ireland since Germany, probably, in Ireland. I don't think you have. Have you? No, you haven't.
Portugal, glamour-ish.
Yeah, Portugal to an extent. Was that behind closed doors, that one? Or were fans back then? I'm trying to remember.
Do you not remember the girl running on getting the jersey?
Oh, yeah.
Who could forget that magical moment in Irish football?
Yeah.
It was a full house. It was an amazing atmosphere. Yeah. So some of the other groups, if you're interested, by the way, what could have been for Ireland, maybe. We could have been in with Switzerland and Israel as the top 2 in the group. Would have made that tournament, no problem. We could have been in with Croatia and Wales. We would have had to go with Wales, I think. Belgium, Austria, top 2 in another group. Hungary, Serbia. I mean, we would have topped that group. Not quite, but, you know.
Hungary have been going really well, and Serbia.
Denmark, Finland, top 2 in Group H. Group J, Portugal and Bosnia-Herzegovina. Italy and England are in the same group with Ukraine. And then Netherlands, France.
Yeah, you got 2 of the toughest.
Yeah, that's all I wanted us to acknowledge here, everyone.
Yeah, but I still think there's an excitement about playing big teams.
No, there is, of course. There's also excitement getting to a tournament, but, you know, fair enough.
But sure, about 64 teams qualify now, don't they? Through various routes.
Yeah. But I suppose the interesting thing, and we'll tease it out all through next year, is next year from March to November, which is how long this group will take, that has been set up as the real referendum on Stephen Kenny.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you're saying, well, he'll get the playoff. But if that group goes appallingly badly, he may not get the playoff.
Yeah, and there's an important point as well to make in that the schedule is so important of games. Like, if you start off, say...
Rotterdam, Paris.
Yeah, and then, say, Athens. Yeah. Then Greece away.
Yeah.
So after 3 games, there's a fair chance you'll have 0 points. You know, even
Mr. Positivity. Welcome back to the room.
No, but I mean, it depends on the run of games. Like,
Yeah,
but
sure.
if you start up with Greece at home and Gibraltar, and then one of the big guns at home, then you could suddenly get a bit of momentum.
Yeah.
You know, you could get a draw against France or Netherlands here and win the other two. So suddenly,
And
it depends so much on the run of games.
Harking back to previous qualification campaigns, sometimes getting those bigger teams early, World Cup hangover. I mean, the World Cup will be, what, 2 months old, effectively?
Yeah.
So, you know, there can be good
Well,
times
let's
to
go
get
back to, if you go back to the qualification for 2002 World Cup, the first two games were Netherlands and Portugal away.
Yeah.
And that kick-started it. Two decent draws. Could have won, should have won Amsterdam.
Yeah. Let's jump into the papers then. Well, I mean, look, that draw is in the papers. Obviously, they could only cover it in so much as they could. Jurgen Klopp's on all the front pages. He spoke at length to journalists on the Friday, so quite a few. Jonathan Wilson, back page of the Observer, faltering Liverpool are at a crossroads and Klopp is hard-pressed to find answers. Tommy Conlon's writing about it in the Sunday Independent, and Jonathan Northcroft as well. So what is the general feeling on Klopp out there, Sarah, in these pieces?
Tommy Conlon's piece has Midas lost his magic touch.
Yeah.
And honing in on this piece, I liked where Tommy went, and he said, what if the heart of the matter is internal rather than external? That he simply cannot persuade his players any longer to play to their maximum game after game after game. Then they're facing a problem that goes to the core of their identity. And in management right now, and you're looking at that word intensity and where they went to last season and how far they had to push themselves and then ultimately came away with nothing. And the age of the profile of the team, Manchester City's glorious run this season. But, you know, Klopp makes the point, outside of the Premiership, there's still so many other things to fight for.
Yeah.
And I suppose the question is, do his players think that those things matter? And that's where I would see it. And obviously we have the 7-year itch. He was 7 years in his first managerial position, 7 years in his second, and this is the 7th year of his third. And interestingly, he says, that anniversary crept up on me, I didn't realise it. So suggesting that he may go for an 8th or a 9th. But does he have the energy to actually go at a rebuilding campaign again? And interestingly, he talks about taking a holiday after his second stint, and he was going for a year. And he was having this big, time off period, and he lasted 4 months.
Yeah.
And he ends up at Liverpool after 4 months. So he said, I was full of energy and I was mad to go again. So maybe he doesn't have energy for Liverpool, but he might have energy for another challenge.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that, Sarah, because this was supposed to be his last season. And then he talked about in various interviews that he wasn't going to change his mind. And he did last season. Then he signed a new contract. And that indicated to me he wanted to build a new team. And I think he's the most interesting manager in the Premier League now because of the point he's at. As mentioned in Jonathan Northcroft's piece, that only Alex Ferguson and Wenger, to a lesser extent, were successful after being in a job that long in the Premier League era. And that he now is like I watched City yesterday, and you admire City, but there's a predictability to City that isn't there with Liverpool. It wasn't actually there with Ferguson's United. When you talked about Fergie time, and what Fergie time tells you is that a lot of games were in the balance up to the very end with that United. And there's a sense of jeopardy about Liverpool, even when they were doing well and, winning both the Champions League and the Premier League. There were so many games that they snatched at the end, or they won against the odds. Yeah. But now there's no single reason why they're struggling now. I think just a lot of things have come together for a perfect storm. And there's an interesting line here with Jonathan Northcroft that against Brighton became the 7th non-Big Six side in 8 league games to take the lead against them. And there's teething problems in transitioning to a new attack, aging of key players. Klopp addressed this thing about them being predictable, but they were always predictable. People knew how they were able to play, how Liverpool were going to play, but they weren't able to counteract.
But that was Mane, wasn't it?
Yeah, not just Mane, but I think just because of aging legs and there's a general weariness, they're not doing what they used to do to the same extent, so they're not able to counteract. Mane was very, very definitely very important, and Núñez has a lot to prove, but There's a very interesting thing, a book he mentions called Red Men Reborn by a guy called John Williams, which is basically a social history of Liverpool and making the comparisons with the Bill Shankly era. And people forget, as pointed out here, Shankly went from 66 after winning the league to 73 for his next trophy. And he was 7 years without a trophy then. That wouldn't be allowed to happen now. You'd be out the door. But what Williams in that book points out is there's similarities with Shankly in that he gets emotionally connected with people. So he doesn't want to let players go, which means transition is harder. Like somebody like James Milner shouldn't be playing as often as he is now. He shouldn't still be at a top club. And you look at they've competed so consistently with City. Like City let Milner go the guts of a decade ago in a free transfer. Like he wouldn't be anywhere near a City squad. But Liverpool still depend on him. And that's the big difference. And Liverpool, in a way, have kept City honest the last few years. And without Liverpool, and I can't see Liverpool being the force in the Premier League definitely this season, it's going to be no procession. And I would think Arsenal will beat them today.
The interesting thing about Núñez, and you're saying, he possibly could fill that Mane void. They're suggesting that his current form is a blip, and the article here says his career record is 1 goal from every 6 shots, a similar rate to Mohamed Salah, Mane and Harry Kane. But at the minute, I think it's 1 in 18. So he needs to move on pretty quickly, or Liverpool, 10 games in, 11 games in, won't be at the races.
Yeah. As you mentioned, Sarah, Klopp was initially at points to paint out, I don't have a 7-year problem, and he was talking about how much energy he has, and he even says that the Dortmund one has been misconstrued a bit, that exit. He says, I was totally fine when I was at Dortmund. I could have stayed there. They wanted me to stay. We just couldn't make the Bundesliga title. It was a case of constantly players getting poached by other clubs. I had no energy problem. I took a year's holiday because it was fancy at that time. Pep and Thomas Tuchel did it, so I took a holiday. I couldn't do it. I was at Liverpool after 4 months. I have no problem with energy. And the situation's completely different now. 7 years is intense. We've all got older, really a lot older. And this time it's nice too. So he definitely shot down any sense that he might be coming to the end. And as Tommy Conlon definitely focuses less on Mane and focuses more on just the relentless nature of how Liverpool go about their business. Because when Klopp's asked about being predictable, and you mentioned this, Kieran, he did say teams have worked out how to play against us when we're not at our best. Teams figured us out years ago, but it still didn't work because we were exceptional. Whatever system we play, there's no system in the world that has no weakness. It's about how we perform. And I think this kind of focus on the change of system, that's real alarm bell stuff to me. That's been the Manchester United methodology for the last couple of years. Oh, they found 2 in midfield that work. This new system's going to do it. 3 games later, come a cropper.
Yeah, because that really struck me about the so much analysis of the Rangers, the system against Rangers. And it was one game and it was against a really poor team on the night. Like Rangers looked like a League One team. And what you could read into that.
They don't even know what system they played. 4-2-3-1 it was listed at. That's what Klopp said it was. And then Klopp came out, Klopp never said that. Klopp came out afterwards, said it was more of a 4-4-2. Trent Alexander-Arnold said in one post-match interview, writes Tommy Conlon, it was more of a basic 4-4-2 than a 4-2-3-1. In another interview, he said it was kind of a 4-2-3-1. So the sense that the system here is paramount to changing everything is wrong, because what Tommy Conlon does, I think, really effectively is he talks about the Pep Lijnders book. And he said even just reading that, you get tired, because right through that diary of last season, the Liverpool coach just talks about how the words pressing and counter-pressing are repeated with obsessive zeal. It is the alpha and the omega of their culture, as described in that book. It becomes exhausting just to read about it on a page, never mind to have to implement it. And so he talks about so many examples where, and we've seen this I think with Mikel Arteta, where he comes in and it's like, well, how do I dress up the same message in a different way today? I'll do a drawing, I'll get the photographer in to make a speech. And so Klopp, again, as this brilliant communicator, has different ways of doing it, different times. We need your legs, your heart, your lungs, your brain. Another day he's talking about how you have to press like a shoal of fish, a swarm of bees, a flight of birds, all this kind of rhetoric. But as Tommy points out, they have played 63 games. Our way costs a lot of energy, concedes the coach late on in the book, but maybe it has cost them more energy than they will ever know, says Tommy, and maybe missing out on the 2 great prizes after such a monumental effort drained them emotionally in ways that cannot be measured either. Physically drained, emotionally crushed by the endgame last May. Perhaps they just couldn't face starting all over again this season. They are not machines. They never were.
Yeah, I think that's the core of it. Like I know there's a lot of issues. Like I said, it's a perfect storm, and there's so many issues like Andy Robertson form, Trent Alexander-Arnold's issues, etc. The aging legs in midfield, but it all goes back to last season. Like they were because City went 2-0 down against Villa. They were close, you could say they were 20 minutes away from winning the title, which would be the domestic treble.
Yeah.
The first half of the Champions League final 6 days later, they were much the better team in the first half against Real Madrid. They had far more shots. The Courtois, the goalkeeper, Real Madrid goalkeeper, ended up as man of the match.
Yeah.
But they didn't win it. And I think that took psychologically what that took out of you, not just physically, but that they were going for everything, and it collapsed within the space of 6 days and within the space of a few minutes on those 2 days. It's very hard to recover from, and to repeat the same messages, we'll go again, and we'll do this after having gone so close.
The adrenaline gone and everything. And I remember the Fulham game early on in the season, and there was a real sense of Virgil van Dijk and a couple of others who are young enough not to be in permanent decline. Like, some of them are just, the bank is empty. They've given everything and they're not coming back. I think obviously the younger ones will come back, but looking at Van Dijk and a couple of others that day, and Fulham, newly promoted, sunshine, full of energy, at home, chasing every ball. There were definitely quite a few Liverpool players, and you could just tell they thought, do I have to match you for intensity and effort here? I probably do, but I just can't. I can't summon it. I've done it so often and so recently. It's not there. And the way the league is at the moment, it's too late now.
Yeah. And look, Tavi Connaugh's piece is here, and it's the piece that stepped out of me. Development is about do. It's simple and logical. We will repeat until we vomit. I'd say these Liverpool lads just like, who goes to work and wants to vomit good? It's like, at the end of it, you hold up your hand and say,
done.
Yeah.
Because as Kieran's saying, they haven't just played lots of games. They've had to have nights where they go to the emotional well so often. So many they really need a big one tonight, and they all invariably have done it. But you probably know as a player, adrenaline, and then when there's either a pause or a defeat, like the Arsenal Invincibles, when they lost at Old Trafford, they hit the deck. You need almost a time of hibernation.
And you're right about the timing piece, because I was watching Bayern and Dortmund last night, right? And obviously Dortmund get the last minute winner.
Yeah.
And the energy exuding from that group, and I was sitting there watching the game going, what was the impetus for this? What was the meaning of this game to them? And it was like, oh, well, they got a point.
Yeah.
Oh, but look how much it meant to them. So it just is where the team cycle is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That group just got a point.
Yeah, and it's always been a high wire act. Like, even last season, they drew at City. Other than that, what they won? Did they win 14 in the last 15 or something? Like, they're an incredible run. But think about in that run, how often Alisson had to make an incredible one-on-one save. Because with the high line, they gambled, that he is so good in those situations, or Van Dijk's recovery pace, etc. But it's just not working to the same extent, and it's hard to rely on something like that to work all the time.
Yeah.
So suddenly, when there is a slackening off, those one-on-ones, the ball's ending up in the back of the net, and there are games. Like Brighton could have scored 7 last week. Napoli could have scored 7 or 8, and I think you're going to see. I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal get a lot of chances today, because Arsenal are a good team now.
To those of you listening on Monday morning and want to tweet Kieran Cunningham about Liverpool's 4-0 win, he's available and waiting for your tweets and abuse now. Sarah, you picked out a piece which I suppose is tapping into an ongoing theme over the last couple of months: referees being assaulted or abused in GAA. I think people are a touch fatigued by this topic, so I was interested you picked it out. Donald Smith, he is the GAA's national match officials manager. In the Mail on Sunday, it's page 62 and 63, an interview with Philip Lanigan. Did we get anything out of this, or what grabbed your eye here? Because I have to say, I read this and I didn't get much out of it in some ways.
Yeah, and look, I suppose I was coming at it from a different point of view, from that idea of being jaded, being on the pitch, being on the side of a pitch, different experiences over the last kind of 2-3 years. And he's talking about the understanding. The reality is referees are sole traders. What we need to do is bring referees back towards the centre, create that interest. We're a group, we're doing a specialised job. We have to make connections with coaches, games, with club managers and chairmen. And I was saying, right, how does that come about? Yes. And then he talks here about it's the accountability and transparency over referees. And he says that there's no link yet between colleges and schools, and no link between former players and schools, right? And I was thinking, okay, so they've started this new programme, transition years, kind of feeding into coaching at underage groups and making kind of, I suppose, connections with kids and clubs, but that link hasn't been made yet. And I was surprised that they haven't gone straight to the nub of it with, say, the GPA. Okay, so I had a really strong conversation with a former Cork hurler a couple of weeks back, and he said, Sarah, I can't understand how the national referees haven't linked in with the GPA to this point. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, look, he said, take hurling as an example. We have players in the Laurie Maher, we have players in the Nicky Rackert, we have players in the Joe McDonough, incredibly good hurlers in counties that don't have an affinity with the bigger counties, who know the game inside out, who have garnered huge respect in the game, playing the game, who could be incentivised by the GPA to go in at schools, go in at colleges, and go in at club level and ref. You know, let's make it a process where these guys who are former players, but, you know, at a level that is respected, come back into the game, but it has to be incentivised.
With Gillette, get into your flow with the new Gillette Labs Razor with